Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Marvel's Mutant Necromancer. Chapter 81. At night, in the warehouse, several black luxury cars quietly drove into the warehouse. The doors opened, and a group of burly men got out of the cars and patrolled the surroundings vigilantly. One of them came to the stretched Cadillac in the middle and pulled away, rear door. Jin, who once appeared in front of Kane and the others in the form of a photo, stepped out of the car, but his face at the moment was not very good-looking, and it also made his whole temperament tend to be sinister. Jin Bin looked at the huge room on the second floor of the warehouse, and walked up with two subordinates with a wave of his hand. Bang! The door of the house was violently pushed open, and Jin took back the cane used to push the door, and walked in with heavy steps. "Okay, I'm here, let me tell you what you want." Jin Bin came to the center of the room and asked in a deep voice. Opposite him was the missing Devil 6. "Tisk tisk, you are indeed the underground king of the United States." His courage is different. He dared to appear in front of us alone. The vampire Mobius was speaking. As the person with the highest IQ and EQ in the team, the others accepted him as the leader responsible for external communication. "Stop talking nonsense, tell your request, or I will leave immediately." Jin Bin was really furious. He didn't know until yesterday that his freighter was hijacked, or by a few escaped super criminals. It's still a small matter, but these guys are a big deal. As the underground king of New York City, he certainly knows that S.H.I.E.L.D. is looking for these guys all over the world. He is arrogant and true, but he is not a fool. That's what madmen do. Mobius also saw Jin Bin's impatience, but he couldn't force him too much, because now in New York only Jin Bin has the ability to give them shelter. "Boss Jin Bin, our request is very simple, then I just hope that you can help us escape the pursuit of S.H.I.E.L.D. In exchange, we will accept your employment and swear we will not be your enemy." This condition is not unreasonable. The 6 super criminals, although Jin didn't know about their demonization, but they had heard of their names, none of them were worse than his former subordinate Bullseye. If he could recruit them, he would become the real king of the underground world, and no one or organization could compete with him. However, this is a poison wrapped in honey. Although the honey is delicious, the poison inside can be fatal. Jin Bing went to a chair beside him and sat down, seriously thinking about the gains and losses. After a while, the true character of the hero finally prevailed. He gritted his teeth, looked at Mobius and said, "Go now, I will arrange for people to send you to Miami, where the environment is more relaxed and chaotic, and it is not so easy for S.H.I.E.L.D. to find you." "Okay, no problem." Mobius immediately nodded and agreed. There are specialties in the art industry. There are indeed brothers Craven who are good at hiding their figures among them, but with Rhino and Dr. Octopus, the difficulty is quite different. And it's nothing to Jin Bing. He controls countless transportation companies like this wharf, and can transport them away in various ways. Just as they came to an agreement, Craven suddenly sniffled and yelled, "Be careful." There was a loud crash, and the glass roof on the top of the warehouse was shattered. Tony, dressed in a steel suit, hovered coquettishly in the air and shouted through a loudspeaker, "Put down the weapons in your hands, S.H.I.E.L.D. will consider commuting your sentence." Maybe. Whatever, anyway, throw up your hands. Ba ba ba, da da da. The response to Tony was the intensive rain of bullets. Those who can be brought by Jin Bing's side are experienced gangsters. It is their characteristic that they are not afraid of death. They opened fire, and a few directly opened the trunk of the car, took out automatic weapons, and fired at Tony. "Hey, I bet the weapons in your hands are all contraband, confiscated." With a whoosh, more than a dozen strands of spider silk stuck to their weapons, and then flew away in one direction, and Peter squatted on the ground. On top of a container, and those firearms were glued to the wall by him. This is not over, and then Peter continued to shoot left and right, wrapped the hands of all the gangsters with spider silk, and then hung them to the roof. "I'm saving your lives. The guy who will come in later is not as good-tempered as I am." "Well, take your thanks to heart and don't tell me." Before those guys could speak, he used the spider again. Ruth gags their mouths. "Spider-Man, you have too many things to do." As the voice sounded, a big hole was melted in the closed warehouse door, and Kane walked in through the hole. The armor on his body changed dramatically. A man covered with a seamless helmet with precise patterns was worn on his head, 2 huge animal skulls turned into his shoulder armor, and other parts of the armor on his body seemed to be composed of various bones, full of gothic beauty. Who are those two guys with Spider-Man? The Devil 6 and Kim saw what was happening outside from the window, but Mobius and the Craven brothers had been in prison early, and they didn't know Kai yet. Anne and Tony, and Dr. Octopus's mind was not working well after being corrupted, and he didn't recognize Kane in the first place. That's Death Whisper and Iron Man, the two newly rising superheroes in New York City. Jin Bin said with a livid face, "Cover me and run out, and none of you will be able to escape if I'm caught." Mobius glanced at Jin Bin and had to admit that what he said made sense. This was also a test. If none of the six of them could stop the three superheroes, then don't say anything, and go to jail honestly bar. "Let's go," Mobius ordered in a shrill voice, while Jin Bin took a few steps back and led two of his men towards the back door. There was a loud bang, and a big hole was broken in the wall of the house. Dr. Octopus waved his four mechanical arms and chased after Peter. This was the only thing he remembered deeply in his chaotic head. Mobius flew out of the hole right after him, and entangled Tony directly. After being corrupted by the blood of the devil, he really grew bat wings under his arms, and only one of the six could fly. He was able to finish the job. Boom, there was another loud bang. This time it wasn't the wall that was broken, the entire lower half of the humble room fell down, and amidst the smoke and dust, a huge black shadow rushed towards Kane frantically. Whoosh, without any movement, Kane flashed aside with a bloody run, and the black shadow directly hit a wall behind him, and then passed through the wall, leaving behind a field of rubble. Countless searchlights shone on that black shadow. What kind of monster was that? Its naked body was over 3 meters high and covered with black scales. Its head had a pair of thick and sharp curved horns pointing straight forward. The red eyes scanned the surroundings, and the open mouth was full of sharp teeth. Is this the rhinoceros? It would be more appropriate to call the Buffalo Man. Kane looked at the big guy outside and couldn't help but want to complain. This guy was extremely corrupted by the devil, and he could hardly see the appearance of a human being on his body, more like a humanoid demon who came out of hell. "He's there." A voice came from behind the rhinoceros, and Kane realized that there was a dark guy hiding there, but unlike the rhinoceros, his limbs and head didn't change much, only the buttocks. It has a thick tail with a cold light shining on the tip of the tail. It seems that it is the man named Poison Scorpion who escaped from prison together. Under the guidance of the poisonous scorpion, the rhinoceros refocused its gaze on Kane, and rushed over again with a roar. Seeing the tall rhinoceros rushing towards him, Kane felt peaceful in his heart, because after training with teacher Razma, he was no longer what he was before. This kind of self-confidence not only came from his successful promotion as the Master of the Dead, it also comes from Rothma's last gift. The textured skull is not really the skull of a creature, but the armor work of Rothma in his spare time, the skeleton of Rothma. This set of armor consists of helmet, shoulder armor, breastplate, hand armor, leg armor and combat boots. Rothma took part of the corpses of creatures of various races that he had eliminated, and combined them with the soul of that creature. At the same time, the world of Sanctuary is full of dangers. Even the weak mages will wear thick armor to resist the powerful attacks of demons and angels. Frequently faced problems: corpses. The flames of hell can burn all fragile substances, and corpses are of course one of them, and this is almost fatal to priests of Rothma. Without corpses, many of their powerful spells cannot be cast. Therefore, Rothma made this set of armor, and using it as an example, many copies were made in the sect and distributed to Rothma priests. And this set on Kane is exactly the one made by Razma himself. When Kane injected the power of the spirit into it, he could clearly feel that there are countless souls echoing him, waiting to be in the sky. Under his command will bring the enemy to the realm of death. Army of the Dead. Kane dodged the rhino's impact again, and softly recited the spell. This is the spell he learned after he was promoted to the necromancer. Its effect is to temporarily awaken the monsters within a certain range around his body corpse, rushing to the enemy. This is the real spell of the priests of Rothma called a one-man army. There was once a necromancer who captured a demon city by himself, and he only used this spell. Accompanied by Kane's incantation, a long-handled bone scythe appeared in his hand, and he slammed on the ground forcefully. A white ripple streaked from his feet to his head. 1, 2, 10, hundreds, countless white souls. He flew out of the armor on his body, landed on the ground, and turned into skeleton warriors amidst the sound of bones colliding. What was even more shocking was that these skeleton warriors returned to their own corpses. Beasts, humans, even demons and angels, all the creatures unique to the world of Sanctuary turned into skeleton warriors, rushed towards the rhino under the command of Cain, and the tall skeleton angels and demons entangled his arms. The legs made him lose the possibility of charging, and those shorter skeleton warriors climbed up his body with the help of their companions, and attacked the rhino man frantically with their fangs and claws. The poisonous scorpion lying on the back of the rhinoceros is also in bad luck. His tail can spray out concussion bombs, tear gas bombs, and strong acid. After being corrupted by the blood of demons, he can even release poisonous mist. Skeleton warriors are useless. Skeletons strengthened by Rothma's spells cannot even be corroded by strong acid. A stout warrior holding a large bone axe is grabbing his tail and slashing with it, completely ignoring the tail. Everything that squirts on. This scene terrified the other members of the 6-member group in the warehouse. Among the 6 members, Rhino's physical enhancement is the most powerful. If he hadn't had no brains, Mobius would definitely not be the boss of the 6-member group, but looking at the rhino whose skin had been chopped off by the skeleton warrior, the Craven brothers who were hiding in the dark couldn't help but stop. Judging from the current situation, the two of them couldn't even make a splash when they joined the battle group. Or don't go in and die. Cain ignored the rhinoceros and the scorpion who were almost overwhelmed by the skeleton warriors, and turned his head to look at the other 2 battles. Tony's side was fine, although Mobius could fly, and his body was a little more flexible than Tony's. But Mobius, who mainly focuses on physical attacks, is not a big threat to the steel suit. As for the blood-sucking ability, Tony said that if it can bite through the steel suit, suck it up. In contrast, Peter is not very optimistic. In the previous confrontation at the bank, Peter did not have the upper hand. This time, facing the re-corrupted Dr. Octopus, Peter still has nothing to do. Now he only hates his mutation. If he really had 6 legs like a spider, he might behave differently. However, I'm afraid his girlfriend Gwen will have a different attitude towards him. Seeing Peter being ravaged by Dr. Octopus's 4 mechanical arms again, Cain stretched out his palm in their direction, blood-stained spear. This is an upgraded version of Corpse Spear. It is also the spell that Cain just learned. It summons several short spears directly from the corpse to attack the enemy. Unlike Corpse Spear, Blood Lance is a tracking spell. As long as Cain wants the target is locked, the blood spear will fly directly from the corpse to the target. Moreover, with the carrier, Cain can also add other attributes to the blood spear, such as poisonous and cold, which also makes the killing effect of this spell power is greatly enhanced. The short spears summoned by the Corpse Spear are smaller than the Bone Spear, and they are fired several times at a time. Accompanied by Cain's spell, a series of broken spears accurately penetrated the 4 mechanical claws of Dr. Octopus, nailing them to death, on the wall. After Peter got out of trouble, he looked at the specimen like Dr. Octopus on the wall, then looked back at Cain, shivered, and complained, "I think you are more like a demon than them." Seeing the rhinoceros being buried in a pile of bones by the skeleton warriors in the middle of the warehouse, and screaming again and again, Craven, who was hiding behind the container, swallowed his mouth and moved back quietly. Although he also strengthened his body, he was still incomparable to the rhinoceros, and since the rhinoceros couldn't survive the attack of the skeleton army for even a minute, he reckoned that he would give it away for nothing. Moreover, their temporary combination does not have a deep friendship with each other, and they are working hard for the rhinoceros. Well, Craven said that his consciousness has not yet reached that point, and he has to find a quiet place to study again. Craven stepped back step by step until he bumped into something warm and furry. He looked back in horror, and a huge wolf head was watching him, showing a smile and thick teeth in its mouth. Immediately afterwards, the wolf's head became larger and wider, as if it was turning towards the bear's head. Before the veteran hunter could tell what kind of bear it was, a huge bear's paw hit his face superior. Boom! Craven flew out through 2 layers of containers. At the same time, 2 white teeth flew out. He was still alive after being slapped by the giant bear transformed into a barbarian. Carrick felt that his physical strength was not enough. That's nice. The chameleon hidden on the iron shelf at the top of the warehouse was taken aback. Just now his brother had winked at him and was about to run away together, but he was shot out in a blink of an eye. The answer was immediately revealed. A giant bear about the size of the rhino just tore apart the container and rushed towards Craven. The demon hunter fought back the pain and rolled away to avoid the palm, and then continued to be chased by Korik. Run with the warehouse full. The chameleon couldn't bear it anymore. After being corrupted, besides directly changing the color and texture of his skin, he could escape with severed limbs and spray mucus from his mouth. The mucus was not only toxic but also extremely sticky. He was going to use this to seal the bear's eyes and save your brother's life. You'd better not move around. No matter what you plan to do next, my arrow will pierce your head. A chill rose from the bottom of Chameleon's heart, and this voice sounded not far from him, but he swore there was absolutely no one there just now. The ruthless huntress Morena aimed at him with her bow and arrow, and there was a stream of white gas on the arrow. This is the change brought about by Kane's promotion to the master of necromancers, inducing arrows, locking the enemy with spirit, attaching the spirit power on the arrow will guide the bow and arrow to hit the target accurately. The chameleon didn't dare to move at all. The intuition he had developed over the years as a spy told him that the woman didn't seem to be lying, and his life was already in the hands of others. Curse of aging. A sense of weakness hit Mobius' body, and he flapped his bat wings weakly, falling down like a kite with a broken string. Morena also forced the chameleon to release its disguise and jump off. Since then, the group of 6 has been wiped out, and none of them can escape. Kane, can you? Don't kill them. Peter stood in front of Kane and said hesitantly. He knew very well in his heart that it was entirely thanks to Kane that he was able to capture the group of 6 so smoothly tonight. However, being kind by nature, he really didn't want to see his good friend torture and kill the captives, so he finally couldn't help standing up and trying to persuade him once. You see, they were caught by us before they could cause harm, and they haven't caused too much damage. We can continue to send them back to prison, at worst, add a few years. Kane looked at Peter, and said in a deep voice, Peter, think about it, this time we were able to catch them so smoothly. If we can't join forces next time or it doesn't go so smoothly, the victims will only be those ordinary people. Don't they deserve to be unlucky? Peter was a little speechless, but he still tried his best. Kane, then they shouldn't be lynched by you, so hand them over to S.H.I.E.L.D. After that, it doesn't matter whether they are killed or shut down, okay? Tony didn't say a word. After seeing the intrigues of high-level society and the life and death of Afghanistan, he didn't care much about the life and death of these villains, but the main contribution tonight was Kane, so he gave the absolute power to over him. Hey, Kane sighed and shook his head. He had already clashed with Peter several times over the matter of murder. This time, Peter made such a humble plea. He really couldn't bear to refuse him. Moreover, he was also afraid that if he refused again, he would completely break with this friend. Peter was a little naive, but he was a good friend. Besides, he had a plan in mind. Looking at the 6 criminals surrounded by skeleton warriors, he had no choice but to say, okay, listen to you, and hand them over to Phil. Thank you. I knew you would not reject me. Give them a chance. Their abilities may contribute to society. For example, that rhinoceros man can be a great firefighter. Patting Peter on the shoulder, Kane walked to the door of the warehouse and called Coulson. Hey, Phil, I've settled here, can you come and receive these guys? However, the strange thing is that Coulson did not reply immediately. After waiting for a while, Kane heard Coulson's hurried voice from the earphone. Kane, we have been tricked. These guys are the bait to attract us. Now a group of demons have appeared in the city, and they are destroying everywhere. I am dispatching people to reinforce. Can you also come and help me? What? A large number of demons entered the city, and Kane's first reaction was to fall into the trap, but Mr. Rothma's teachings made him calm down quickly, and he thought about the whole thing seriously. The Sinister Six was injected. The prison robbers did not contact them, and they finally boarded Jinbin's freighter. If the prison robbers were sent by Jinbin, then there is no need to do anything extra. If not, would it be evil? The group of 6 was released to mislead their sight, so is it their real purpose to attack the city this time? Thinking of this, Kane immediately asked, calm down, Coulson, where are they attacking? On the island of Manhattan, hospitals, banks, and hotels are all obvious targets. A charity party is being held in a hotel, and all the people present are celebrities from the economic and political circles. I have to rush there immediately. I left a team at the pier. You hand over those fugitives to them. Okay, Coulson, you go there first, we'll be there soon. Kane felt more and more that there were big problems inside. Hospitals, banks, hotels. Hey, how could the devil be interested in these iconic buildings? I'm interested. These attacks are obviously to attract attention, which is exactly the same as the method of releasing the evil six. However, the real target of the enemy is likely to be hidden in Manhattan, and these attacks will also cover up their real target. It seems that they must rush there as soon as possible, but it is unrealistic to rely on the 5 of them to search the entire Manhattan, and Coulson may not be able to provide help for a while, so looking back at the warehouse, Kyun was going to start his plans ahead of schedule. The conversation between Kane and Coulson was also heard by Tony and Peter. Tony had just confirmed Pep's safety, and Peter had just made a phone call with Aunt May and Gwen. Seeing Kane coming back from the door, they looked at him together. Kane, Tony and I will go first, and you can rush over after handing over the 6 of them to S.H.I.E.L.D. Peter said anxiously. Hearing that innocent citizens were being attacked by demons, he couldn't help it immediately. Wait a minute, Peter, it's not that simple. Kane stopped the impulsive Peter. What do you mean? Kane shared his thoughts with the two and then waited for their feedback. I agree with Kane's point of view. Everyone has a purpose in doing things, even demons. What is the purpose of those jailbreakers releasing demons to destroy everywhere? It's definitely not just to create panic. They must have some purpose. If we don't show it, we can't act rashly. After all, Tony is older and agrees with Kane. But those innocent ordinary people can't wait that long. There are people struggling with death in Manhattan every moment. Peter disagreed with him, and he hoped that more people could be rescued. Do the demons wait? They always show their feet. Peter is right, we can't just wait for things to happen. We can wait, but ordinary people can't wait. But the 3 of us, including Morena and Korik, are too few to take care of the whole Manhattan. Kane agrees with Peter this time. It's not his style to wait for the tents to develop. What about Coulson? Peter asked. They must give priority to rescuing the trapped celebrities. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. is not an official U.S. agency, they cannot completely ignore the orders of the U.S. government. Kane said calmly. He will not be outraged by this now. The government, after all, the organization is a government organization, and it is impossible to be completely detached and independent. Moreover, the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still set up in the United States, and they can't get around the government's requirements. These bloody rich people. Peter couldn't help cursing. Hey, boy, there is a rich man standing in front of you. Tony was not happy. Kane looked at the two of them, recalled his plan not long ago, and said, although S.H.I.E.L.D. found it. Do you mean? Under the gaze of Peter and the others, Kane turned his head to the sinister 6 in the middle of the warehouse. Are you crazy? We just taught them a lesson and arrested them. Peter immediately exploded, while Tony waited quietly for Kane's explanation. Didn't you just want to give them a chance to be human again? Why are you against me again? Kane asked Peter, and he also wanted to slowly reform Peter's behavior style. But they haven't changed yet. Peter froze when asked. You also heard that the enemy this time is demons. In race wars, no power can be wasted. They are at least human. Besides, do you expect the prison to reform these guys? Forget it, or let me come. I believe that everyone in this world has chips to do things, it just depends on whether you can give it. Kane walked towards the group of 6 while talking. Okay, don't pretend to be dead. Your ears must have heard what we just said. Now that Manhattan is invaded by demons, give me a response. Kane stood in front of them and said to them. Hee, you want us to help you? Don't be kidding. Even if all New Yorkers are dead, it has nothing to do with us. Come on, send us back to the prison. I will quietly watch you protect the people who become the devil's food. Ah. Before Mobius finished speaking, Kane released the life siphon on him. The life siphon of the necromancer is not a joke. In a few seconds, Mobius was sucked into a human being. Kane stopped. He might be directly sucked to death, but even so, he now has more layers of skin than a skeleton. You can continue to be stubborn, and then I will suck you to death. Do you want to try to see the difference between me and S.H.I.E.L.D.? Kane said this sentence with a smile in his language, making the always fierce group of 6 there is also a feeling of shuddering. Aren't you from S.H.I.E.L.D.? Mobius's vitality is still tenacious, and he still has the strength to speak after he has become like this. I'm a thug hired by S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't think they would mind if a few fugitives died in the battle. Cain put away his helmet, and looked down at the group of 6 with eyes burning with white flames. Now, answer me, help me, or die. Also, don't try to use your brains. Have you seen the Iron Man behind me? Tony Stark, one of the largest technology tycoons in the United States, can hack into the surveillance network of the entire United States. If you escape, then if you are caught by me, I will decorate my armor with your bones. Under Cain's order, the surrounding skeleton army stepped forward in unison, giving a very powerful commentary to his words. Except for the fainted rhinoceros and the screaming Dr. Octopus who was pinned to the wall, the other 4 had been completely overwhelmed by Cain, and their rebelliousness belonged to whom? When Cain showed when their strength is absolutely overwhelming, the desire to survive will guide them to make the right choice. Let's help you this time. Can you talk to S.H.I.E.L.D. about commuting our sentence? Kraven raised his hand and said, the 2 brothers really couldn't hold back anymore, not to mention the army of skeletons, even though the man and woman standing next to them are not opponents at all. Let's fight for leniency as soon as possible. The 2 of them are not heinous people. They were mainly arrested for stealing some superpower items. If it's done well, it's not impossible to release it early. Cain understands the reason for slapping a sweet date. The means of threatening life cannot be used all the time. It is not a good thing to cause the opponent's rebellious psychology, because Cain didn't intend to only use them once. Although the strength of the Evil 6 is not as good as their own, they are comparable to Peter. The most important thing is that they have no connection with S.H.I.E.L.D. or other organizations. If they are used well, they will be very good combat effectiveness. Teacher Rothma told him all about his experience of founding a sect, and some of his ideas are very useful for reference. The 2 Kraven brothers looked at each other and nodded together. Okay, we are willing. I'll join too. The poisonous scorpion also raised his hand, and he also succumbed to the threat of death and the temptation of freedom. Quote. And me. Mobius also raised his hand tremblingly. He is the one who has the deepest understanding of death. Now he, let alone Cain, can shoot him, even if anyone shoots him. Will die. Cain sucked it too hard just now. Boss, can you let me suck some energy first? Restore some physical strength. Cain got a Jin Bin's men from the roof and threw it to Mobius, and told him not to suck him to death and leave him alone. Peter was also very helpless about this, and he couldn't let Mobius go out to suck others. Boss, what about the 2 of them? Kraven asked, pointing to Rhino and Dr. Octopus. One of these 2 guys has no brains, and the other is crazy. It is difficult to communicate with them. It's okay, just look at me. Cain gathered 2 balls of spirit power in his hands, and then pressed them on the heads of the 2 people respectively. As the white flames in his eyes flourished, the 2 balls of energy completely enveloped them, their heads. The power of the 2 spirits seems to be the same, but they have different effects. The one on Dr. Octopus's head sucks the blood of the devil to restore Dr. Otto to normal. Cain values his brain more than his combat power, just like Dr. Connors. In fact, using these technical talents for combat is simply reckless. But the power of the spirit wrapped around the head of the rhino is different. Cain used it to recast a section of the soul band that is close to him in the pure soul of the rhino. Appropriate, after the completion, he will have an indescribable sense of familiarity and trust with Cain, and Cain no longer has to worry about his loyalty. Unless there is another master of soul science to help him, Rhino will be one of his most loyal men. The soul recasting came to an end, Cain's heart moved, and with a wave of his hand, the power of the 4 spirits also entered the heads of the other 4 people. What is this? Mobius exclaimed. He kept scratching his head, but of course he didn't touch anything. The others also looked at Cain, waiting for his explanation. A little protective magic that can protect your brain against spiritual seduction spells or something. No other functions. Judging from Cain's behavior just now, Mobius and the others don't believe that this thing is only used to protect them. Well, there is also a small function. Cain gestured with his fingers. For example, if I think about it, your heads will explode, or if I die, you will become idiots. What kind is it? Oh, I forgot. Maybe there are no side effects, maybe there are both. Cain's words did not make the 4 of them feel a little relaxed. Looking at the armor made of bones on Cain's body and the huge number of skeleton warriors around him, they instinctively think that Cain is an extremely evil guy, and, although his face looks very young, but his white hair is very suspicious. Maybe he is an old monster who relies on absorbing the vitality of living people. Look what kind of vampire Mobius has been sucked by him. It has to be said that smart people are often more likely to frighten themselves. Kane's method has made the group of 6 bow to him now, and they will never dare to have second thoughts in a short time. Okay, we don't have much time to delay. Tony, you take Peter and Mobius to Manhattan for reinforcements first, and we'll go there after that, and try your best to hack into the city's surveillance system and keep an eye on it. Well, don't worry, leave it to me. After that, Tony took off and flew in the direction of Manhattan. Mobius also spread his bat wings and followed closely behind. Peter was the last one. His movement speed was not much slower than those two. Okay, Chameleon, go and drive a container truck, we have to rush to Manhattan as soon as possible. Kane ordered immediately. A container truck was galloping on the streets of New York. Kane had informed Coulson about the Sinister Six. Although Coulson felt something was wrong, he couldn't stop Kane, and Manhattan did. There is an urgent need for manpower support, so he can only agree to the urgent matter. Are these manpower enough? Kane sat in the co-pilot thinking. He has no way of predicting how powerful the enemy can drive, but the number must be indispensable, as can be seen from the number of little devils standing in the front line, and he thought of the Chitauri and Ultron clones that would come like locusts in the future, and the number of those enemies would only increase. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but slam his fist on the car door. Always the enemy. At this moment, a building passed by Kane's peripheral vision, and he hurriedly shouted, "Stop!" Squeak, the car drew a few tire marks and stopped on the road. "What's the matter, boss?" Chameleon asked strangely. He looked around, but there seemed to be no trace of the devil. "You go to support first, I'll be there in a while." Kane got off the truck and waved for them to go first. The group of 6 didn't dare to disobey his order now. Although they were a little puzzled, they continued to drive towards the incident. Tony and the others have already rushed to Manhattan. They are going to the hospital. There are no high-ranking officials here who need the protection of S.H.I.E.L.D. The monsters they faced were about 2 meters tall, but their bodies were all curved, and their green skin was exposed. Apart from the 10 sharp claws on their fingers, there were spikes on their backs. The police's pistols could penetrate their skin, but their tenacious vitality didn't care about these gunshot wounds, but aroused their viciousness and accelerated towards them. Boom! 2 white pulsating light waves came to the sky and smashed the heads of 2 monsters, and then a golden and red figure rushed down from the air, and punched the other monster flying. "Guard the gate of the hospital, don't let these demons rush into the hospital." Tony straightened up from the cracked ground, and ordered without looking back. The police didn't take it seriously. What they need most at the moment is a strong leader. It would be even better if it was a superhero like Iron Man. "Hey, this way is blocked, you should enter through the main entrance in order." Peter said nonsense while swinging from the air, kicking a demon trying to jump from the building next door with his feet together. Mobius, who was sneaking by the side, was not polite, grabbed the demon directly from midair, and bit him on the neck. The vitality content of the blood of this hybrid demon is much stronger than that of ordinary human blood. Too much. After sucking up this one, he stared at other demons with glowing eyes, and now, these demons are simply delicious French food for him. Even if Kane does not let him attack these demons again, I am afraid he will. I couldn't bear it anymore. With the addition of the 3 of them, the hospital's defense line was immediately stabilized. After all, these demonized soldiers are the most basic expendable arms. They can show their prestige against ordinary people or the police, but it is not enough to face superheroes. Even the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents led by Coulson stabilized the situation at the hotel, and even started to counterattack to a certain extent. Hiss. Mobius sucked the last mouthful of blood into his stomach, and dropped the dead demon. This was already the 3rd demon he had absorbed. A large amount of blood containing demonic energy made his body stronger. He began to with some other thoughts. Maybe, when one's strength increases to a certain level, one can escape from that guy's control. Call. At this moment, a huge white figure passed over his head, and the strong wind almost knocked him over. When he looked up, his heart was cold, and the little thought disappeared immediately. Mobius, whose real name is Michael Mobius, is a world-renowned biochemist and a Nobel Prize winner. If it weren't for that rare blood disease, he might still be that prestigious doctor. However, He became a vampire after that. His knowledge was still there, so he recognized the white figure at first sight. Aeolian pterosaur. With a wingspan of more than 11 meters long, it is the largest flying animal known to man, lived in the late Cretaceous period, and fed on young Tyrannosaurus rex and other creatures. These descriptions immediately came to Mobius' mind. What flies in the sky now is the skeleton of a function pterosaur, and a layer of faint white light covers its winged hands. It seems that this is the source of power for it to be able to lift into the air. What really made Mobius desperate was the man sitting on the back of the function pterosaur, Cain. At this moment, he didn't look at Mobius, but just patted the mount under his crotch, and the skeleton dragon grabbed a demon from the roof and tore it in two in the air. The eye sockets burning with white flames also glanced in the direction of Mobius. Mobius had a cold war, and immediately rushed down and launched an attack on the demons. Jokingly, this kind of undead creature is simply his natural enemy, and any skeleton warrior will force him to run into the air. It's time to go. Another skeleton dragon, this time I can't even run. Come on, don't think too much, hurry up and perform well, try to make a good impression in front of Cain. It's a pity that his efforts were in vain. Cain didn't really find anything. He was on the phone with Coulson. Hey, Phil, I have something to trouble you. What happened? Well, in order to fight against the demon army, I borrowed something from the government property. Can you help me settle it? Okay, I'll help you figure out a way. Where did you borrow things? Well, the American Museum of Natural History. Museum. What did you borrow there? Quote. Munitions and the like. Are you kidding? You don't want our weapons, you borrow them there. Hell, you can resurrect the dead, those fossils. Well, how much did you borrow? Not too much, maybe the entire paleontology museum. Quote. Can I return it when it's used up? Are they still able to move? Well, I'll find a way. Are you sure those fossils can defeat the demon? It might not be possible. It might not be possible to resurrect me. Cain looked down, and a white torrent rushed from the street to the bank surrounded by demons. Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, and Brontosaurus were huge. The skeletons of dinosaurs were crushed over the demons like tanks. The bones of these giant dragons were full of minerals, and with the blessing of spells, they were as hard as granite. The demons who were stepped on were like a piece that fell to the ground and was crushed. Man stepped on a pizza. Moreover, the irascible Tyrannosaurus skeleton rex seems to have retained some of its previous habits. Stamping alone cannot satisfy their desire to kill. They are still biting those demons that have not been stepped on with their huge mouths. Some lucky demons managed to escape the attacks of these big guys, and then bumped into another group of smaller skeletal dinosaurs that came later. Although the bones of the medium-sized dinosaurs headed by Deinonychus were heavier than before, those guys are much smaller, but they are the real demon slayers who are good at teamwork. A demon saw a skeletal Deinonychus standing in front of him and tilted his head to look at him. Before he could decide whether to attack or retreat, two other skeletal dragons threw him down from behind, and bite off his head in one bite. A security guard at the bank stared dumbfounded at the scene in front of him, and couldn't help but patted his colleague. Am I dreaming? Could it be that I've seen too much Jurassic Park recently? His colleague also looked blank. I don't know, but I think I had the same dream as you. Cain watched the unilateral massacre below with satisfaction in the air. The American Museum of Natural History he just passed by was the large advertisements on both sides of the entrance of the museum that caught his attention. It said that the museum is Paleontology Week this week. A group of real paleontological fossils are specially exhibited. The photo of the Tyrannosaurus rex fossil on the ad evoked his memories. The scene here was almost identical to a movie, Night at the Museum, he had seen in his previous life, and in that movie, the puppy-like creature the Tyrannosaurus rex fossil left a deep impression on him, and it also reminded him that the resurrection of human bones would cause panic among civilians. In contrast, the resurrection of paleontological fossils is much more acceptable to people. At least there will be no religious people to protest his desecration of the dead. Just do what he said. Cain jumped out of the car and immediately ran into the museum. In fact, most of the exhibits in the museum are imitations, but probably because of the Paleontology Week, all the exhibits in the Paleontology Museum are actually real, of fossils. Cain immediately released the resurrection of the bones on them. Although the bones of these ancient Earth overlords had completely turned into minerals, Cain was surprised that the spell still took effect. The power of the spirit entwined on the bones perfectly fused the minerals and bones, and repaired the missing parts of the fossils. An army of fossil bones appeared in front of Kane in an instant, and they surrounded Kane. In the middle, their eagerness to try is expressed through the soul link. Kane overlooked the entire battlefield from the air. These big guys performed very well, probably because their souls have been held back for too long, and their movements are somewhat rough. The demons currently dying under their fangs and claws, even not a single body remains. At this moment, the truck of the 6-person group also arrived, but Kane did not let them join the battle group. The situation here has stabilized and there is no need for them to take action. Now, he is waiting for the next step of the mastermind behind the scenes. With such a big scene of foreplay, Kane believes that he will never stop there. Beep. A call request came from Kane's headset, and he connected immediately, and Tony's voice came into his ears. Kane, Jarvis has noticed something unusual. Kane immediately cheered up. Tony, tell me in detail. 3 unnumbered helicopters just entered Manhattan airspace. The aviation authority didn't find them. Come on, the sky over New York is full of planes, hospitals, police, and media. If it weren't for Jarvis satellite scanning, no one would have noticed those 3 helicopters. Where did they go? Wait a minute, let me see. They stopped on Bleecker Street. Is there any important place there? Tony inquired in surprise. This was completely different from the enemy's target he imagined. On the contrary, Kane's face was ashen. 177A Bleecker Street is the location of the New York Temple and one of the 3 nodes of the Earth Protection Circle established by the Supreme Mage. If the Devil's target is there, it means that there are guys from other dimensions start planning to invade the Earth. Kane remembered that Ancient One Mage told him that there are space spells covering the periphery of the 3 major temples, and ordinary people can't even see them, and the 3 planes parked there, indicating that the Black Hand behind the scenes must have a way to go to the temple, so the enemy must know something about magic. Thinking of this, he immediately said in a deep voice, Tony, I'll just take Morena and the others this time. I'll leave the other demons and the group of 6 to you. By the way, there's also Peter. Kane, are you questioning my ability? Tony was a little displeased. Tony, someone needs to take charge of the overall situation here, and the enemy this time may also know magic. Hearing what Kane said, Tony finally understood that this battle was beyond his reach. Okay, I'll take care of the garbage here, don't worry. Tony sighed. Also, come back alive, I need a consultant for my research on anti-magic armor. Hee, yes, I will. By the way, help me find a place to hide those big guys after I'm done. Understood, you were really long-winded. Kane patted the head of the function pterosaur, and the big guy immediately turned around and flew towards Bleecker Street. After receiving the news, Morena and Korik also got out of the car, turned over and rode on 2 Deinonychus followed closely, thereafter. At 177A Bleecker Street, Master Daniel, who had a relationship with Kane and the others, watched nervously what happened in the city. Seeing the appearance of those demons on TV, he instinctively thought that these guys should be creatures from other dimensions, but the space detection device in the temple did not respond, which also made him very puzzled, wondering if he should contact Master Gu. Wow, at this moment, there was a crisp sound of glass breaking outside the gate, and Master Daniel hurriedly turned his head and ran towards the gate. He knew very well that the sound represented that the space disguise of the New York Temple had been broken. Unfortunately, the enemy who attacked this time was far more cunning than he had imagined. Just as Master Daniel ran to the stairs with 2 students, 2 rockets smashed through the gate with tail flames and flew in. Be careful, Master Daniel instantly opened 2 golden shields to block the 3 of them, but the shockwave of the explosion still knocked them to the ground. 2 teams of tall and strong demons rushed in with automatic weapons, and immediately aimed at the 3 of Master Daniel and fired wildly. The mana shield can nullify the bullets, but their bodies are still ordinary people, and they will be injured and die if they are shot. There is no way. Master Daniel has to cover the 2 disciples and retreat to the corridor next to them. The demons with guns did not pursue, but scattered around and vigilantly aimed at every corner. Judging from their movements, they looked more like battle-tested soldiers than demons from hell. Tisk tisk, is this the legendary New York Temple? It's too simple, and the defense is unexpectedly weak. I really don't know what those powerful creatures are afraid of. A green figure strolled in. This green figure is Norman Osborn, with green skin, long ears, and sharp teeth. Although his body is not as strong as the men around him, as the planner of the whole incident, he never the benefits from the devil or definitely the most, but it hasn't been revealed yet. Who are you? Why are you willing to work for the devil? Master Daniel's voice came from the corridor, and he heard Norman's voice. This is not a movie, and few devils can speak English. Oh, why not? He can bring me endless lives and boundless power. Why can't I work for him? I can't get these by working for the US government. Norman said to the voice. He walked in the direction and replied. Stupid, if you are a being from another plane, dare you believe that no matter what race or era, the status of a traitor will never be very high. Hee, as expected of a wise mage, his words hit the nail on the head. Unfortunately, all of this is in my plan. Norman waved his hand, and his subordinates immediately dispersed and ran to various parts of the temple, and he continued to walk down the corridor. Our family has been serving this demon for hundreds of years. Since the pioneering era of the United States, he has been protecting our family's bloodline from being cut off. Although the survival time is a little short, it will definitely not die unexpectedly. Norman took time off. He said, of course, my ancestors have paid a lot in these hundreds of years, and all those fresh souls have been dedicated to him. Haven't you ever thought that he is using you? Maybe he is afraid that you will find out the truth, so that every generation of you will die early. Master Daniel persuaded Norman while drawing the lines of spells, as New York Street. The guardian mage of the temple, he will not be defeated so easily. Hee, yes, my ancestors also thought of this, and they also left a diary, writing what they saw and conjectured, which also prompted me to impatiently let that self-proclaimed demon king the fellow hasten to descend to earth. It seems that you are crazy. Well, since it wasn't the devil who really came to the earth, he won't be able to come if he kills you. As soon as the words fell, the magic pattern in Master Daniel's hand was also drawn, and a golden pattern floated in his palm. As he pressed his palm into a relief carved on the wall, the golden pattern immediately lit up the icon. With a buzzing sound, the entire temple seemed to groan, and a shock spread throughout the room. All the demons looked around vigilantly. It seemed that the temple was not as simple as they imagined. Norman frowned, and waved his hand fiercely again. The demon soldiers under him were all carrying high explosives. His plan was to have them installed everywhere in the house. In this way, with a simple detonation button, the task is completed, and as for the guardian mage of the temple, it doesn't matter if he is dead or alive at that time. The three demon soldiers walked into a large room, which looked like a lounge, with a tea table, a sofa, and two sets of armor standing around it, giving it an ancient aristocratic atmosphere. However, the demon soldiers were not in the mood to appreciate these things. They just placed a pack of C4 explosives on the wall according to the instructions. Just as one of the soldiers was activating the explosives, a cold light flashed, and he died immediately. However, there was another soldier who died in the same way, and it was those two armors who did it. The only remaining demon soldier didn't care to activate the explosives, and hurriedly raised his rifle to shoot. The powerful bullets knocked the helmet of one of the armors into the air, but the rest of them still slashed over without hesitation. Gunshots broke out in the entire New York temple immediately, and wailing and roaring sounded continuously, and the mages finally began to fight back. What Master Daniel activates is the magic circuit of the entire New York temple. The three major temples are the weakest places on the Earth's space wall. The weakness here has nothing to do with the thickness. It means that multiple dimensions converge here. Other planes enter, which is why the Supreme Master placed the temple in these three places. However, due to the intersection of multiple dimensions, the mana in these three places is extremely abundant. On this basis, the Supreme Mage arranged many magic organs for the three temples. With the mana supply of these nodes, there is no need to worry about these organs, maintenance wasted. Once Master Daniel activated it like this, the entire temple seemed to be alive, traps emerged endlessly, and some seemingly harmless decorations immediately turned into powerful weapons that could kill people. A demon soldier leaned against the wall and looked around vigilantly, but he didn't notice that when the wall lamp above his head turned, a hot lava-like flame poured directly on his head, turning him into a human-shaped torch. A demon soldier who was planning to install a bomb in the study heard movement behind him, and quickly got up to look back. A terrifying scene appeared. All kinds of books on the bookshelf flew up and flooded onto him. Not long after, he drowned in the ocean of knowledge. The successive screams from all over the room made Norman's smile gradually disappear. It was obvious that his subordinates had suffered losses. Master Daniel had been hiding at one end of the corridor and never came out. Man's scalp was also a little numb. Now even if he wanted to rush in and kill Master Daniel, he didn't dare to walk in casually. Who knows how many magic traps are arranged in such a long corridor. HMPH, mechanism, what an ancient trick, I want you to know that your tricks are outdated. Norman Osborn said through gritted teeth, and took off an orange ball from his waist, press the button on the top and throw it down the corridor. Master Daniel was shocked when he saw the ball rolling into the room. This constantly flashing thing was definitely not a Halloween toy. With a quick reaction, he immediately pulled a golden mana whip from his hand and pulled the ball back. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, the ball exploded in the corridor, flames and thick smoke filled the entire corridor, and many institutions were destroyed in the explosion. The institutions are used to hurt people secretly, and there are very few defenses on the institutions. For the magic circle, this also makes the structure of these organs very fragile, unable to withstand the power of the explosion. Use heavy weapons. Seeing that the bomb was effective, Norman Osborn immediately ordered to his subordinates. There were constant explosions in the temple, and Master Daniel's face changed drastically. Scott, Sally, go to Karmatage to find Master Ancient One. Master Daniel yelled at his disciples, pulled out a stick on his body and rushed out. Get damaged by the explosion, and that's all over. Hee, the mouse hiding in the dark was finally smoked out by the fireworks. Norman Osborn didn't panic when he saw the golden light on Master Daniel's stick. He circled around, and the 10 nails were still shining with a strange red light. Immediately afterwards, he waved his hands to meet Master Daniel. As soon as they fought, Master Daniel felt the pressure. Norman Osborn, who was not outstanding in stature, was unexpectedly strong. Moreover, Master Daniel's magic weapon hit his hand, but it did not hit him as he had imagined. That would cause him harm, but on the contrary, Osborn's 10 claws continuously emitted red rays. The scorching rays made Master Daniel dare not take it hard, and could only dodge desperately. Just as they were fighting fiercely, Cain finally arrived at the temple. Looking at the broken gate, his face turned cold, and he rushed in immediately, hoping that he would not be too late. What greeted him was a swarm of bullets, and the demon soldiers guarding the gate would not slack off in the slightest. Fortunately, the armor on Cain's body has not been removed, and the series of bullets did not harm him, and the 2 conscientious demon soldiers were also nailed to the wall by his bone spear. Cain waved his hand, and the 2 skeleton warriors stood up from the corpse of the demon soldier. At the same time, he opened the eyes of the spirit and began to scan the entire temple. A large number of red souls filled the building. From the black spots, we can know that they are all corrupted demon soldiers. Finally, Cain found souls of different colors in a corner on the 2nd floor. It should be Master Daniel. He ordered the skeleton soldiers to clear the entire building. Immediately afterwards, the demon rushed in that direction. Master Daniel's current situation is not very good, not to say how powerful Norman Osborn is, although the red rays on his 10 fingers are powerful, but as one of the 3 guardian mages of the temple, he has passed the initial stage. It is not difficult to deal with after the strange period, the problem is that his situation is too passive. Norman Osborn is a successful businessman, so what he values is not the outcome of fighting with others, but the efficiency of completing tasks. After finding himself in a stalemate in the battle with Master Daniel, he ordered his subordinates to continue to bombard the whole house with grenades, and Master Daniel has to let Osborn go to stop the grenade from exploding. Taking care of this and losing sight of another, he was inattentive, and he was finally hit by Osborn, and 2 red rays passed through his knee, making him incapacitated. Tisk tisk, it's too weak. A guardian mage of the temple was defeated by me so easily. It seems that the earth is destined to be invaded by creatures from other planes. Either way, it's better to control the invasion in your own hands than to control it in someone else's hands. Be strong in your hand. After finishing speaking, he directed 10 fingers at Master Daniel, trying to kill this troublesome guy with one blow. Bone prison. A cage of white bones enveloped Master Daniel, and the thick joints blocked Osborn's red rays. Who is it? Osborne turned his head suddenly, and saw a white spear flying towards his chest. Before he could react, the bone spear passed through his chest and took him through the glass and flew away, out of the house. Kane's figure appeared on the second floor, and 2 more bone spears killed the remaining 2 demon soldiers, and the 2 skeleton soldiers summoned again continued to clear the temple, while he helped up the demon soldiers who had just emerged from the bone prison. Master Daniel released in. It's you. Master Daniel looked at Kane in surprise. He never expected that the first reinforcements would be this kid who was still in the probationary period. Although the spells he used were still evil, his behavior but it moved Master Daniel again. Kane smiled and asked, "It's not too late, how is the temple?" "Leave me alone, hurry up and kill the demons in the house, and don't let them hurt the Mana Hub," Master Daniel said immediately. "Okay, you rest here, and leave the rest to me." From his spiritual perception, he already knew that Morena and Korik had arrived, and with them came the skeleton dinosaur army. A relatively small batch. A series of bullets passed through the gaps in the bones of a skeleton dragon, and some bullets hit it, and the bullets were directly crushed. The fossilized bones that have been blessed by spells are really too hard. Seeing the skeleton dragon rushing over with its mouth wide open, another demon soldier hurriedly threw the grenade. Unfortunately, before the grenade was released, a bone arrow came out of the bone gap of the skeleton dragon and hit it accurately. He holds a thunder arm. Clap, the grenade landed, boom. The flames devoured the 2 unlucky ones, and Morena hitched a bone arrow again and ran forward behind the bone dragon. On the other side, Carrick turned into a werewolf, quickly approached the demon soldiers, and then disemboweled them with his claws. With him attracting firepower, the bone dragon team he led also quickly harvested the lives of the demon soldiers. Kane is also cleaning up the demons in the house. Fortunately, the enemies who attacked this time don't seem to be particularly troublesome. This crisis seems to be easily resolved. Obviously, his understanding of demons is still a little superficial, and the vitality of these creatures is not that fragile. In the back alley of the temple, Osborne, who was lying on the ground, suddenly moved. His right hand grabbed the bone spear on his chest and pulled it out forcefully. Tick, tick. The big hole in his chest gradually closed as the bone spear was pulled out, and there was no trace of scars except for the blood dripping from the wound. He listened to the screams from the temple, showing an angry expression. Just like what the demon in the painting said, his time is running out. He was completely corrupted by the blood of the demon, but he did not match a demon heart. His current powerful recovery ability and supernatural power consume his own vitality. Tonight's action is a test. If he cannot take down the New York Temple, it will prove that he is incompetent, and the demon in the painting will seek to invade other dimensions. By that time, even if Osborne does not die in the New York Temple will also die due to exhaustion of vitality, and what will happen to the curse flowing in his son Harry's body, even he cannot predict. He has thoroughly read the notes left by the family for many years, and he has also drawn a conclusion from them. The environment in the dimension where the demon in the painting is located is already extremely bad, and it is still getting worse. He has been urgently urging the Osborne family, he just wanted to escape from that world as soon as possible, even at the expense of conflicting with the lineage of the Supreme Mage on Earth. Of course, Osborne didn't really want to be the devil's pawn, and his purpose was very clear. As long as he completed the first phase of the mission and destroyed the New York Temple, then he had a reason to ask for a devil's heart. After Demon Heart, he will transform into a complete demon and no longer need to surrender to that guy. And according to the devil in the painting, he must destroy the 3 temples before he can completely descend to the earth. If only one temple is destroyed, he must have no way to pursue Osborne's betrayal. Even, in order to get rid of that regarding the entanglement of demons, Osborne felt that it would not be impossible for him to return to cooperate with the Supreme Mage. He is a businessman, and of course all interests are paramount, and things like good and evil are things that children would entangle. As for the loss to New York tonight, just spend some money. With the status and network of the Osborne Group in the United States, this small loss is still fair. Therefore, no matter what, destroying the New York Temple cannot be lost. Thinking of this, Osborne didn't care about attracting attention. He immediately ran to the helicopter and ordered the mounted missiles to attack the New York Temple. Osborne has just successfully developed a flying skateboard, the helicopter target is big and stupid, he will not put himself in it, and there is another important thing that he must carry close to his body. The sound of the helicopter taking off immediately caught Kane's attention. Looking at the missiles loaded on the weapon pylon, he hurriedly ordered Function Pterosaur and other flying dragons to attack the helicopter. The Function Pterosaur, almost made of steel, swooped down with its wings retracted, grabbed one helicopter with its claws, tore it hard and flung it towards the other, then spread its wings and clapped again, and the last helicopter also get shot down by it. However, the ferocious demon soldier fired 2 missiles before he died. One shot of this kind of military air-to-ground missile is enough to destroy a small building. Seeing the 2 missiles roaring, Kane could only fight. He fired 2 bone spears with all his strength, trying to make them explode in the air. Seeing that the missile and the bone spear were about to collide, the space mutated, as if a piece of glass had been smashed out of thin air. A violent explosion happened, but not a single trace of energy leaked out, not even a trace of wind was stirred up. Master Ancient One. Kane glanced quickly, and sure enough, Master Ji Yuyi was not far from him, watching the explosion in the air with his hands behind his back, as if watching fireworks. Seeing Kane found her, Master Ji Yuyi also turned his head and smiled at him. "Thank you for your help. Master Ancient One is polite, we are maintaining the same earth." Kane feels very good about Master Ancient One, not only because she is as wise as Rothma, but also because she is flexible and not pedantic in dealing with people. In order to protect the earth, he did not hesitate to take risks to absorb dark energy. Moreover, after hundreds of years, no matter how hard or tired he was, he never gave up his responsibility. The successive destruction of the helicopter finally drove Osborn to a dead end. He could no longer care about his own plan, and all the plans were based on the fact that he was still alive. Therefore, he hid behind the opposite roof and walked from the green. He took out the oil painting from behind the magic skateboard and recited a spell. The figure of the demon appeared again, staring at Osborn with scarlet eyes and saying, "Norman Osborn, I hope you bring me good news. Master Demon King, I have already broken into the New York Temple and destroyed most of the buildings there, but the Supreme Mage and another mage stopped me, and my manpower has almost been lost. My lord, I need your help." Quote, "Trash, what else can you do?" The demon yelled at Osborn loudly, and the crater behind him also burst into the sky with his roar. "Sorry, my lord, I have tried my best. Believe me, I was only close to destroying the New York Temple. At that time, the other 2 temples will also be affected. Moreover, you can also take this opportunity to test the Supreme Mage. If the plan is successful, you will have a fight with him sooner or later, right?" Osborn said sincerely with his head down, so that the demon in the painting could not see his expression. The real name of the demon in the painting is Torque. He was born in a wonderful world. The space wall of this world is extremely weak, and the energy of countless dimensions converges here. Various energies cause some powerful beings here to be born with supernatural powers. Ability, however, this may not be a good thing. All kinds of energies have different powers and different forms. Some of them fuse with each other, and some of them fight against each other. These energy changes form energy tides, and these energy tides at regular intervals lead to abnormal structures in this world. Fragile, just like a glass is constantly eroded by cold and heat, and this energy tide will also kill a large number of lives in this world. Tak has powerful mysterious energy since he was born. He can project illusions, control fire magic energy, and open dimension portals. These abilities have also allowed him to avoid energy tides that can destroy the entire world many times. However, even so, his situation is still precarious, because he discovered that the interval between energy tides is getting shorter and shorter. I am afraid that one day in the future, energy tides will destroy the entire world, and he will also die here. Of course Tak didn't want to sit still. He kept looking for other worlds where he could settle down through his dimensional abilities, and finally, one day he opened a dimensional portal and came to the Earth with phantom projection. The place where he descended was the United States, and it coincided with the era of the pioneering of the West. He watched countless Indians being ruthlessly slaughtered, and finally decided that this was the ideal place for him to live, because the strength of their race depends on the number of his followers, as well as the number of souls he captured. A group of followers who love to kill is of course his perfect choice. It's a pity that when he planned to descend with his body, he met his fellow Mephisto, who had already put this world under the taboo. Mephisto, who has been absorbing souls on the earth since ancient times, discovered this alien creature with life characteristics similar to his when Torque's projection just arrived. However, Mephisto did not the idea of becoming a relative with him. After all, although there are many souls on the earth, it is better to suck one person than two people, and there are so many forces dividing up these souls, Mephisto himself feels that it is not enough. Based on the idea that colleagues are enemies, Mephisto appeared and attacked Talk at the most vulnerable moment when he first came to the earth. Although he failed to kill him in one fell swoop, the seriously injured Talk could only use the secret method to escape in a hurry. There will never be a shortage of guys with a lack of brains in the world, a shabby settler who came to the West to try his luck, or to put it more pleasantly, a cowboy found Toke in the wild, and saw Toke's rich appearance after the illusion, with a rare kindness, he saved his life. Of course, after Toke woke up, the cowboy didn't forget to ask him for a reward for saving his life. The benevolent Toke will of course repay him. He will incorporate a drop of his own dirty blood into the cowboy's body. This drop of dirty blood will give the cowboy the ability to heal himself no matter how seriously injured he is. However, the price is that he can only live by the age of 50. The cowboy is also the ancestor of the Osborn family. Torque returned to his own world to recuperate, but he still left a space-time beacon on the Earth, that is, the oil painting. The immortality made the cowboy surnamed Osborn the most notorious gangster in the West. He accumulated a lot of wealth in a short period of time. Before he died, he passed down the wealth, the oil painting, and the blood of the devil. As a result, the Osborn family has gradually become one of the richest families in the United States, but the population has always been small. Not too prosperous. After Torque recovered from his injury, he was also more vigilant. He used illusions many times to induce the descendants of the Osborn family to collect Mephisto's origin and other information for him. Unfortunately, few people know these secret things, but not without gain. The Osborn family helped him collect news about the Supreme Mage and the three great temples. Compared with the solitary Mephisto, there are obviously more messages from the lineage of the Supreme Mage with many disciples. Torque used the Phantom to investigate the situation of the New York Temple, and finally confirmed that this is one of the dimensional nodes of the Earth. 1. He believes that if he can descend here, he should be able to drive away Mephisto's prying eyes. However, Talk, who had suffered a loss once, did not dare to come so casually. The fragile structure of his world could no longer withstand another energy tide. If he was injured again, he might not even have a place to recuperate. So, being forced to have no choice but to coerce and seduce the current head of the Osborn family, Norman Osborn went to break the New York Temple, fearing that he would have other thoughts. Torque lied that he had to destroy 3. He was able to come to the temple. I have to say that these two guys are really a perfect match. After listening to Norman Osborn, Talk finally couldn't stand it anymore. Seeing that the opportunity was coming, he said that he couldn't let it go, and judging from the information collected by the Osborn family, the Supreme the Mage Gui is just a mere human being. In his opinion, human beings are not on the same level as powerful demons like Mephisto. Thinking of this, Talk finally made up his mind. He looked down at Osborn with a haughty attitude and said, "Well, useless servant, I will personally come down to destroy this humble temple, and at the same time kill the so-called the Supreme Mage who can protect the Earth. I will tell him with reality that only with supreme power can he say such big words." Drink. The demon in the painting opened his mouth wide, and in front of the oil painting, behind Osborn, a ring of flames appeared in the air. The center of the ring was pitch black, and a wave of heat gushed out from it. Osborn watched this scene, trembling all over. He realized that he might have misjudged the strength of this demon. Judging from his eagerness to descend to the earth, Osborn thought that he was just a remnant after the destruction of a certain world, the bereaved dog, but he didn't expect that this bereaved dog from another world might become a three-headed hellhound on Earth. In this way, my little thought would be a bit ridiculous. In the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy is impossible, is weak and useless. The abnormality on the opposite side of the temple also attracted the attention of Master Gui and Cain. This time, Master Gui's face was not so peaceful. What came out from the flame circle was a destructive and brutal breath. As if a peaceful and harmless dimension could emanate, she immediately raised her hands to trace the lines of the spell. Cain saw countless phantoms like transparent glass overlapping in front of the ring of flames. This is probably the spell of Master Ancient One. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, a huge roar came from the ring, sent out, and those phantoms were all shattered. Chapter 91. Boom! A huge foot stretched out from the ring and stepped on the road. The concrete road was torn apart, and a flame ignited in the crack. Immediately after that, a pair of big hands full of cracks stretched out. Those hands grabbed the edge of the ring and tore it outwards forcefully. Then a huge head stretched out, which was similar to the one painted on Osborne's oil painting, exactly the same. With a bang, another big foot landed, and the demon Tok stood on the street, looking at Master Ji Yuyi and Cain in the top window of the New York temple. How about it, human beings, are there no other spells? Then, submit to me and serve me, and I will reward you with strength and status. Tok opened his mouth and said to Master Ancient One. Space magic aroused Tok's interest, and he had the idea of absorbing the Ancient Master as the Pope of his sect on Earth. Cain, help me, Master Ji Yuyi shouted, his hands continued to draw in the air. Blood spear. Cain understood the meaning of Master Ancient One. Stepping out from that big foot, Master Ancient One began to prepare a spell. This demon's body is too big, even if he only uses physical attack, it will destroy the entire Spear Street, not to mention that he also knows magic, so Master Ji Yuyi must create a mirror space to fight, so as not to affect ordinary people in the temple. Cain knew that it was time to desperately. The power of the spirit in his body was running non-stop, and the blood spear flew out of his armor as if he didn't want money, and pierced Tok's head fiercely. As soon as I fought against Tok, I knew that I had taken it for granted. Although these short magic spears were small, the magic power contained in them was very pure, which also made the penetration of these blood spears quite strong. At least the scales on his body could not be ignored. Tok stretched out his arm to block the blood spear. The blood spear pierced through his scales, and the toxin and ice-cold properties contained in it also entered his body. His resistance had never been low, but the icy power made him very uncomfortable. There was no such cold energy in his world. Fire shield. A word in the devil language was uttered from Tok's mouth, and a wall of flames rose up in front of him, dispersing most of the blood spears. The wall of fire dispersed, and a circle composed of burning flames. The shield was attached to his left arm, and his scarlet eyeballs looked at Cain from above the fire shield. Now, Cain has successfully advanced to the ranks of powerful enemies in his heart. It is necessary to prepare enough casting time for Master Ji Yuyi. Cain saw that the blood spear was no longer effective, so he immediately jumped up high. Jen flew to the top of the demon's head. Aging. Vulnerability. The curse of fragility is also one of Cain's newly mastered spells. It can aggravate all damage suffered by the enemy and is a very important curse spell for priests of Rothma. However, I don't know if it's because Tok's body is too big or because of the talent of his race. These two curses fell on him and didn't see the effect. At least his movements didn't slow down at all. No, Cain had no choice but to continue looking for opportunities to release the blood spear to attract his attention. Garbage, your understanding of power is naive and ridiculous. Tok opened his mouth wide and directed a pillar of fire at Cain. The center of the pillar of fire even appeared white. Cain hurriedly manipulated the bone dragon to avoid it. Whoosh! A long flaming whip suddenly appeared in Tok's hand, and it accurately wrapped around the bone dragon while Cain was avoiding the fire pillar. Tok's strength is absolutely in line with his size. The updraft caused by the bone dragon's 12-meter wingspan can't make it move a little, but it is dragged straight down by Tok. Let me let you know what air supremacy is. The flame whip made the bone dragon creak, and it wouldn't last long even if it didn't get dragged down. Cain looked at Tok's ugly face below. With one shot, 3 white light clusters were thrown down. Rothma's skeleton suit is really Rothma's greatest gift to Cain. It perfectly solves the problem that Cain has been unable to use powerful spells. Unfortunately, he just used the skeleton army at the pier tonight. Now the suit, most of the bones on the body are still recovering, and there is no way to provide him with enough raw materials to use this spell again. Of course, in the face of a demon like Tok who is proficient in fire spells, Cain does not intend to use the skeleton warrior. The Rothma priest who participated in the battle between gods and demons has warned future generations that it is best not to be proficient in large-scale damage spells such as fire or lightning. The demons use bone warriors, and their faces are not short of powder. Although the army of bones cannot be released, the bone essence left on the bone suit can also provide Cain with some spells that do not require so much bones, such as the death embrace he throws out now. The visual effect of Death's embrace was so confusing that Tok didn't pay attention to those little white light balls at all until Death's embrace exploded on his face. Even a demon as strong as Torque couldn't resist 3 consecutive violent explosions, and it still exploded on his face. The severe pain made him let go of the flame whip in his hand, and the bone dragon was able to escape. Cain did not continue to release Death Embrace, but looked down. This spell is the most powerful attack spell he has mastered now, and of course it consumes the most. He must confirm the effect of the spell before deciding on the subsequent attack method. Trash, you successfully angered me. Toke's big hand was removed from his face. The explosion exposed half of his face, but the surrounding skin was quickly gathering up. It seems that his recovery ability is also quite powerful, and to Cain's regret, it seems that the toxin damage from Death's Embrace has no effect on him. Lava field. Torque raised his foot and stepped heavily on the ground, and a large crack immediately spread around there as the center. This is the large-scale magic mastered by Torque. Turn into magma, and absorb heat from the core of the planet to supplement itself. Of course, the high temperature on this magma land is also very suitable for him to fight, and enemies who are not proficient in flames will be negatively affected. The cracks continued to spread outward, and the lava continued to erupt outward. Toke almost wanted to laugh out loud. His desperate gamble seemed to be correct. His body had already reached the earth, and he released such terrifying magic. And that despicable Mephisto still hasn't appeared. Well, as long as the New York Temple is also destroyed by this trick, Tok will be able to expand the time and space gate and summon his remaining subordinates in the original world, so that come on, I'm afraid Mephisto may not be his opponent, and his idea of ruling this world is about to come true. At this moment, Mephisto, the demon that Tok is thinking about, is turning into an old man, standing on the top platform of the Empire State Building, watching Tok from a distance with a telescope. It's this mindless thing, no wonder it looks so familiar, but he dared to come back, and even face the Supreme Mage head-on. Well, just let me see if there is any change in Ji Yuyi's strength. Torque finally discovered the abnormality. The ground is still cracking, and the magma is still erupting. However, what is the situation of the street lamp standing in the magma next to it? Has the Earth's material science developed to this point? After he took a closer look, he found that the space around him seemed to be slightly distorted. Toke, who is good at opening space entrances, has certainly seen this kind of scene, and he may have entered a mirror space. The Supreme Mage really has 2 tricks. Tok's eyes finally looked at the thin, bald woman opposite. Cain's spells were more inclined to attack directly. This kind of space-type spells seemed to be the masterpiece of the Supreme Mage. Accepted, if you are willing to return to your own world now. Will you let me go? Tok sneered. No, Master Ji Yuyi smiled slightly. I will enter your world and kill you. The honor of the lineage of the Supreme Mage cannot be desecrated, and the same is true for the Earth. You can choose when the war starts, but when it ends, I said it's up to you. As soon as the words fell, Master Ji Yuyi closed his hands together, and countless buildings attacked Toke. They submerged the magma on the ground and smashed heavily on Toke. Cain, who had watched the movie, watched this wonderful scene from a close distance from the air, and still opened his mouth. The reality is 100 times more exciting than the movie. Streetlights, roads, walls, roofs, sculptures, all objects on this street have become. He picked up the weapon of the Supreme Mage, and slammed it heavily on the tall demon, and it was still endless. Originally, he had always wondered how a demon who could split a steel with a wave of his hand would be afraid of the blows of these harmless things like sand, but when he really saw the methods of Master Ji Yuyi, he understood this point. If a small dead branch hits a person, the person will not react, but what about a tree falling on a person? Quantitative change leads to qualitative change. This principle applies to any object. The gravel is small enough, and the water droplets are weak enough, but deserts and oceans are the places where life is most likely to be devoured. Tok is afraid. Master Ji Yuyi may indeed not have much research on flame and frost spells, but her attainments in space spells are definitely masters. The destructive power produced by space distortion and infinite space superposition is deadly enough, and Tok doesn't want to die yet. As a cunning demon by nature, Tok certainly has a way to save his life. It is a space teleportation spell, which is engraved by him on a spike on his right arm. As long as the spike is broken, he will teleport randomly to any place within a radius of kilometers in this world. He relied on this spell to avoid Mephisto's pursuit. Unexpectedly, he had to use it again this time, although he might be discovered by that guy again. That is better than dying here on the spot. Boom! Tok exploded the buildings stacked on him, leapt into the air, glared at Ji Yuyi fiercely, and broke off the teleportation spike on his arm. At this time, he didn't dare to say anything harsh. Yes, it's important to escape. A green light flashed, and Tok's huge body disappeared into the air. Kane was startled, and hurriedly looked at Master Ji Yuyi. Master Ji Yuyi still had the calm expression, and Kane immediately felt relieved. Sure enough, another green light lit up in the air, and Tok's body appeared in front of them again. Seeing Tok's dumbfounded expression, Master Ji Yuyi smiled slightly. Do you think I have been preparing for so long just for such a simple space superposition? This mirror space has been blocked by me, unless you kill me, otherwise absolutely no escape. Then I'll kill you. Tok angrily spat out a pillar of fire at Master Ji Yuyi, and at the same time drew out a long flame whip, waving it to attack her. With a turn of both hands, two golden round shields appeared in the hands of Grandmaster Ji Yuyi. One side blocked the pillar of fire, and the other blocked the drawn whip. Master Ji Yuyi, who is good at extracting mana from other planes, is not afraid of this kind of pure energy attack. In her spare time, she even opened her mouth to tell Kane about her understanding of spells. Whether it is fire or ice, they are actually a form of energy expression. The so-called mage is to collect energy from other spaces in the multiverse, cast out spells to turn these energies into sharp weapons or shields, and finally accomplish the purpose that the spellcasting wants to achieve. Master Ji Yuyi smiled at Kane again and said, "Of course, this is the principle of spells mastered by our school of mages, but I think the principles of spells are roughly the same, except that the methods and sources of energy acquisition are different. What do you think?" "I think." Kane was taken aback, and dropped two more death hugs from the air, and then replied, "I don't think it makes any difference whether you use a pistol or a spell as long as you can kill the enemy." Master Ji Yuyi raised his eyebrows, a typical pragmatist, but he is right. It is better than some people who are obsessed with spells and energy themselves, and forget their purpose of learning these things. Quote, Master Ji Yuyi and Kane's defense and attack are perfect, and Tok can only bear it silently while howling. He also thought about turning around and killing Kane, the troublesome kid, but after thinking about it just now, Master Ji Yuyi's set of spatial superimposition spells, he felt that he should endure a little pain. If Master Ji Yuyi was freed, he would not be less threatening to him than Kane. The battle between the three shocked the fourth person in this space. That's right, Norman Osborn was also surrounded by Master Ancient One. She didn't worry about such a guy with a demonic aura wandering outside. After witnessing a real magic battle, Osborn realized how stupid he was. Those self-righteous calculations are nothing in front of these powerful beings. As long as they think about it, they will die every minute without burial. However, he was also resentful why Ji Yuyi and Kane didn't help him when he was most helpless, but showed their strength after he was determined to throw himself into the arms of the devil. Tok made another attempt. He raised his fire shield and slammed it at Master Ji Yuyi fiercely. At the same time, the fire whip in his other hand turned around strangely and wrapped around the bone dragon. With a surprised expression, his huge head suddenly turned 180 degrees, and opened his mouth to Kane on the dragon's back. A white-hot energy gathered in his mouth, and it erupted in the next second. Master Ji Yuyi is right, all spells are a form of energy, and the same is true of the fire talent mastered by Torque, but of course there is a difference between energy and energy, that is, the degree of purity of energy. Take Tok's attack as an example. The fire shield and fire whip are red in color. Although they look bluffing, they are actually just using the fire energy as a weapon and a shield. The temperature contained in it is not high. On the contrary, the pillar of fire he spit out was different. The temperature of the whitish center of the pillar of fire was several times higher than the red flame on the outside, and this time the pure white pillar of fire he spewed out was already the strongest he had ever released. The energy attack, just want to kill the weaker one first, so that he still has a chance to come back. Cain suffered from this white pillar of fire solidly. Although the armor helped him resist most of the energy impact, the rest also roasted him to the point of fainting. At the critical moment, Master Ji Yi with rich combat experience saved his life. A golden long whip wrapped around Tok's neck, and he pulled back hard. The rapidly tightened long whip strangled the demon's throat, causing the pillar of fire to he was suffocated back. The cruel reality taught Cain a vivid lesson. Never underestimate any creature that has lived longer than you. He may not have eaten more salt than you, but his combat experience and critical skills are definitely better than yours. Be rich. Seeing that Tok was struggling desperately with the energy whip on his throat, Cain finally put away his contempt and controlled the bone dragon to dive down. When the speed of the dive increased enough, Cain jumped up, holding the Rothma bone dagger tightly with both hands, and inserted it into Tok's chest without hesitation. The demon's spell resistance is extremely high, and he will never sit back and watch Cain use the life siphon to suck his vitality and soul. Only the Rothma bone dagger, the most powerful weapon in the eyes of gods and demons, can kill him. Ow! Torque loosened the long whip on his throat with both hands, and slapped Cain's back frantically. Cain resisted the pain to protect the bone dagger, and let the impact help him penetrate the bone dagger deeper. Of course, Master Ji Yi would not sit back and watch this young superhero get hurt. She stepped on the stairs moved by space magic and rushed towards Tok at high speed. At the same time, the energy round shield in her hand also changed into an energy long sword. As Master Ji Yi took the last step, she came to the back of Tok's neck. With a wave of her hands, the energy long sword cut off Tok's head cleanly. Tok's life force that was out of control was immediately absorbed by Rothma's bone dagger, but the danger did not go away. A large amount of flame energy gathered in Tok's body, and with his death, these energies got out of control. Red tongues of flame drilled in and out of Tok's withered body. Even Cain, who could not use fire magic, felt a violent energy brewing in that corpse. He quickly called the bone dragon, and wanted to pull out the bone dagger. Don't move. The body will explode as soon as the dagger is pulled out. I'm afraid this mirror space will collapse, and the outside will be affected. Master Ji Yi, who is more sensitive to energy, hastily stopped Cain. Then what should we do? Cain was sweating coldly. Torque's body seemed unstable now, and the explosion seemed to happen very quickly. Don't panic. The calm voice of Master Ji Yi gave Cain some confidence, and soon, Master Ji Yi came to him, still holding Tok's huge head in his hand. Don't make any moves. Master Ji Yi looked at Cain and said, and then she placed Tok's head on his neck again. Cain opened his eyes wide, watching Master Ancient One press a golden charm on the wound, and then the flame energy flowing around frantically rushed into Tok's head as if he had found a vent. The skin of Tok's head, which was crazily infused with flame energy, turned from green to red, and his facial features began to shine outward. Cain seemed to think that the thing would explode in the next second. Fortunately, Master Ji Yi spoke to dispel it. His fantasy, Cain, give me a soul. Okay. Although he didn't know what Master Ji Yi meant, but there was no time to ask at this time, Cain immediately recruited a soul from the armor and threw it to Master Ji Yi. Master Ji Yi, who received the soul, did not say a word, and slapped the soul into the center of the forehead of the skull, and at the same time drew a hexagram pattern on it. With a swish sound, as the hexagram pattern was completed, all the flame energy was absorbed into the skull, and the half-human high skull continued to shrink, and finally turned into a long horn slightly smaller than a human skull. The skull lay quietly in the palm of Master Ji Yi. Master Ji Yi, this is... Cain looked at the crystal-clear skull curiously and asked. Oh, this, you can regard it as a magic weapon. That demon is proficient in fire magic, and there will naturally be some traces of controlling fire energy in his head. I activated them with magic, and then attracted the fire energy in the corpse, injected into it, and finally, seal it with a soul, and the magic weapon is complete. You can use it to release some fire spells, like the one released by the demon just now. Maybe the power will be weakened, but it will be more or less. I'll give you some help. After speaking, Master Ji Yi threw the crystal skull over. This is for me. Cain looked at the slightly warm skull in his hand in surprise. Although Master Ancient One is proficient in controlling energy and doesn't need any magic tools, this one brings together the flames of a demon all over his body. It would be a bit too generous to give away the magic weapon of energy as if it were given away. Hee, didn't you provide that soul? Besides, you contributed a lot to kill this demon this time, and you should be rewarded. You can keep this magic weapon. Master Ji Yuyi smiled with his hands behind his back, obviously not going to take it back. Thank you so much, Master, you are much more reasonable than a certain one-eyed black charcoal head. Cain quickly thanked. The magical artifacts made by the supreme mages are still very good, such as magic floating cloaks, auxiliary the effect is very good, this gift has greatly improved his strength, at least he has an extra fire weapon. So, how to use this magic weapon? Cain asked curiously. Well, this magic weapon is different from the others. The last soul was provided by you. You can try to communicate with him. Communicate. Cain raised the skull in front of his face, and was about to think of a way to communicate with it, when suddenly the skull opened its eyes, which startled Cain, and he took a closer look, only to find that the pair of eyeballs in the eye sockets were actually made of flame energy, and then the skull opened its eyes and continued to speak. Hey, boss, thank you for giving me this new body. When you summoned the skeleton army in the warehouse last time, you didn't call me. It's a surprise, I can't express how grateful I am to you. Come on, come closer, I want to give you a big hug. Oh wait, I don't seem to have hands, what a pity. Looking at the chattering crystal skull in front of him, Cain's eyes were a little straight. This guy's mouth is as bad as that of Deadpool. Is there something wrong with the soul he caught in a hurry? Hey, boss, turn around, that green-skinned guy wants to run. Cain yelled loudly before he could consider whether to change the crystal skull to a quieter soul. Cain looked back, but it was Norman Osborn. Master Ji Yuyi restored all the scenery in the mirror space to its original appearance, and he was exposed alone. You two mages, you see, I was just coerced. Now the culprit is dead, and the curse flowing in our family blood has disappeared. I am willing to start a new life. Can you give me a chance? Osborn flattered Cain and the others and said that Tok's cursed blood had indeed lost its effect, but also, his immortal body no longer existed, and he would die with any spell used by the two people in front of him. His only choice now. The Ancient One silently took a small step back. Their supreme mages were only committed to preventing the invasion of alien planes, but they were unwilling to intervene too much in secular affairs. Firstly, most of the energy they used for casting came from alien on the plane. Excessive use of magic energy will also attract the attention of the other plane. Second, the abuse of magic energy will also lead to instability in the plane. Therefore, the Supreme Mage strictly prohibits his disciples from using magic on ordinary people. Of course, she herself would not break the precept easily, not to mention, there is Cain here, and there is no need for her, a reclusive old guy, to make a decision. Then what about those who died innocently? Cain looked at this guy who was once called the Green Goblin, and he couldn't imagine that he really had something to do with the devil. Innocent death. I remember that you stopped those half-demons in time, didn't you? There shouldn't be many casualties. That's good. I will take 1,000 million from Osborn Industries to set up a foundation to be responsible for the accident. How about the rescue and compensation matters in the names of the two of you? I'm talking about the lives of those half-demons. Half of their souls are human. I don't think there are so many people who voluntarily become ugly demons. Cain looked at Osborn expressionlessly. The ugly face is disgusting. It can be said that he was behind most of the incidents in New York City during this period. Even though he had thousands of reasons to justify, Cain didn't think he was a judge. He thought that it's just a guide, guiding those sinful people to the kingdom of the dead to repent of their sins. Oh, those ex-soldiers. I paid for it. You know, they will do anything for money. I brought them together to reduce the crime rate in New York. Osborn justified. He stopped in the middle of speaking, because Cain had already come in front of him and slapped his chest with a palm. He felt that his vitality was constantly being lost, and death was approaching rapidly. Please let me go, Harry. Seeing that his vitality was about to be absorbed, Osborn suddenly grabbed Cain's hand, and said his last words in pleading words. Your guilt has nothing to do with others. Hearing Cain's promise, Osborn finally closed his eyes, was sucked into a mummy by Cain, and lay quietly in this mirror space. Kill him, can you explain to S.H.I.E.L.D.? Master Ji Yuyi came over, looked at Osborn's body and asked. The death of a big boss is not a small event for a big company that plays an important role. No, so I have to kill him now. If he is handed over to S.H.I.E.L.D. alive, he really can't die. Kane knows more about S.H.I.E.L.D. The US government behind S.H.I.E.L.D. is holding back. Master Ji Yi nodded. In fact, she also didn't have a good impression of these human spies who sold their souls to the devil. The question just now was just worried about Kane. Compared with her, she, a young superhero, was more interested after all. It was the first time for her to see another spell system on Earth after all these years, which was very helpful for her improvement in the spell field, and Kane, a young man himself, also made her very interested. Kane, thank you again for your help to the temple. Moreover, I hereby sincerely invite you to come to Karmatage at your convenience, and we will discuss the perception of magic together. Master Ancient One, you are too kind. I will definitely visit Karmatage at the right time. I am very impressed with your space spells. Kane replied quickly. It is obvious that Master Ancient One wanted to repay the kindness to save the New York Temple is not ordinary. Although Kane's spell system is different from that of Master Ji Yi, but the stones of other mountains can be used to attack Jade. Kane doesn't mind learning more about other spell systems. Master Ji Yi smiled and nodded, and with a wave of his hand, the mirrored space disappeared, while Master Daniel and Morena were standing in front of the New York Temple waiting for them. Master Ji Yi, Mr. Joe, the demon has been solved. Seeing them walk out safely, but the demon disappeared, Master Daniel finally heaved a sigh of relief. As the guardian mage of the New York Temple, if this place falls, he has inescapable responsibility. Master Ancient One, Master Daniel, I'll go and finish this matter first, see you again when I have a chance. Kane waved Osborne's body in his hand and said, the Supreme Mage will definitely do something about this incident. To sum up, there is no need for me as an outsider to cause trouble here. Moreover, although Osborne is dead, his body can also be exchanged for many benefits. Half an hour later, all the half-demons in New York City were cleaned up, and Coulson looked at Osborne's withered body and asked in surprise, is this the culprit? Yes, Norman Osborne, through an oil painting, contacted the demon of hell, and was bewitched by it, trying to open a passage to hell so that this demon descends to New York to rule the world. Kane helped the Supreme Mage and the others. He told a little lie. He didn't intend to tell about the matter of Master Ji Yi and the New York Temple, because it was completely unnecessary, and the New York Temple is usually hidden in the mirror space. Even if it was revealed, S.H.I.E.L.D. would not be able to find it. Instead, they will question Kane's words and cause him some trouble. As for the lie of ruling the World Committee will believe it. After all, there is absolutely no shortage of lunatics who want to rule the world in this world, and it has started since World War II. Although I feel that the death of Osborne, who was sucked into a mummy, has something to do with Kane, but it can save New York from a catastrophe. Coulson doesn't mind the death of a businessman, and the surveillance video did capture the arrival of the Torque Demon. Although the picture of him disappeared later, the guilt of Osborne, who was in the same frame as him, could not escape. By the way, what about Nick, the person who entrusted us to solve the incident as him? Why can't he be seen at the critical moment? The director has received an important piece of information, and has returned to the headquarters to organize the manpower to go to the Arctic Circle. Arctic Circle. Kane looked to the north, and it seemed that Captain America Steve Rogers was about to be resurrected, and the Rubik's Cube would also be resurrected, along with it. On the third day after the incident, at the press conference, Tony Stark was still talking on the rostrum. Yes, as you can see, this is the animal bone developed by Stark Industries. The robot was originally used to help children with autism, but I didn't expect it to be useful in the fight against monsters. I am very relieved for this. Of course, this robot is still in testing and has not been put into the market. Therefore, friends in need may have to wait for a while. Big entrepreneurs are different. Lies blurted out, and they sound the same as the truth. Peter complained to Tony on the TV while helping the Rhino Man lying on the experimental bed to fix the alloy restraint. Otherwise, if you go up, the reporters will leave in about 10 minutes. Kane on the side glanced at Peter, and locked the alloy buckle on the other side. This is the laboratory of Stark Tower. Peter and Kane came here to study the problem of demonic corruption in the Evil Six. Although Torque is dead, the phenomenon of demonic corruption in the Evil Six has not been eliminated. so they want to study the reason and make sure that the 7 people together with Dr. Lizard will not have any irrational problems. After the incident that night, Nick Fury has acquiesced that Kane is responsible for the Sinister Six. Of course, if there is any problem in the future, he will definitely come to Kane. In order to prevent this accident from happening, Kane urgently needs find out the severity of their corruption and whether they can control their own bodies. In the current Stark laboratory, Dr. Lizard, an expert in biogenetics, Mobius, a vampire expert in biochemistry, Peter Parker, an experienced and agile experimental assistant, and Kane himself, who is proficient in soul science, gathered together. Figure out that if this team can't figure out the truth of corruption, what combination can? Of course, the fly in the ointment is that Peter, the catastrophe of the laboratory, made him a little uneasy. After all, there were 2 experts here who were cheated by him, so Kane felt that he had to keep an eye on it, just in case. In addition, this laboratory is a bit noisy, because the little ones brought out by Kane from the Museum of Natural History were temporarily placed here by Tony, probably because he was too excited after the resurrection. These skeleton dinosaurs kept going. Running around in the laboratory, smelling things and seeing things. I don't know how they perceive the world. These overlords on the Earth hundreds of millions of years ago have great curiosity about new things, and like to use their mouths and teeth to confirm whether these things are edible, such as laptops, mobile phones, or a crystal skull. Hey, beast, put me down, believe it or not, I'll burn you to ashes. That noisy skull was being dangled around by a Deinonychus, and even more tragically, Deinonychus coincidentally, it pushed its front forward, so its threatening words could only stay on its lips. The Deinonychus ran up to Kane and the others, looked sideways at these people, and the crystal skull let out a shrill cry as if it had found an organization that had been lost for many years. Boss, help, you can't treat your loyal servant like this. I take back the previous suggestion to the great and noble you. Hey, Kane sighed, touched the head of the Deinonychus and pulled out the crystal skull from its mouth, not because he really forgave the noisy guy, but mainly because he was afraid of disturbing their experiments. Listen, Lakanishu, I don't care how great your ideals are, please be quiet now, or I will throw you into the New York Temple as an exhibit. Yes, the skull replied aggrievedly, but, boss, don't you think it's a shame not to conquer the world with your strength? There are so many people here, and there must be a lot of dead people. With your ability to resurrect, wouldn't it be easy to have an army of tens of thousands of undead? Even if you can't conquer the world, you can always occupy a kingdom. Quote. Did you tell Andriel that too? How do you know? The story of you killing your master has spread throughout the shelter. This is slander, boss. I swear on the honor of the fallen demon that what I say is from the bottom of my heart. Honor. The demons who disperse as soon as their companions die are only you, the sinking demon family. You, the leader of the sinking demon family, are not much better. Kane shook his head, and threw Lakanishu in front of the TV to let him have a good look at this world and conquer it. The ordinary skeleton warriors will die if they are hit by automatic weapons. You think this is still the Middle Ages? The soul that Kane casually threw out that night belonged to the leader of the fallen demon, Lakanishu. God knows how Mr. Razma put his bones on the suit. The fallen demon is a strange thing among demons. The character of fear of hardness has been brought to the extreme, and his mouth is still broken. Lakanishu is one of the best. If Kane hadn't asked Master Gui, once the magic weapon was formed, it could not replace the magic weapon. He would have given the crystal. The spirit of the skull has changed. After giving the bone dragons a quiet command, Kane's experiment officially started. The first step is anesthesia. Of course, it is definitely not anesthesia. With the current physique of Rhinoceros Alexei, it is useless to use drugs to anesthetize elephants. Therefore, this matter can only be done by Kane. As soon as the soul-soothing spell was cast, Alexei fell into a deep sleep. In addition to Kane's rise in rank, probably the rhinoceros's not-so-intelligent brain also played a key role. After Alexei fell asleep, Mobius immediately injected the purification serum he and Dr. Connors had jointly developed into his body, and then they closely observed the various instruments around the bed. Kane knew nothing about these scientific instruments and various physical signs, so he simply opened the eyes of the spirit and began to observe Alexei seriously. Just like the demon soldiers Kane met in the New York Temple, the red souls were covered with black spots. With the injection of the serum, a strand of blue silk surrounded those black spots and began to attack the black spots. Madara struck. In the beginning, the process went smoothly. The blue silk threads gradually wrapped the black spots from the outside to the inside, and quickly decomposed them. When the blue silk threads were about to completely wrap the black spots, a sudden change occurred. Kane was surprised to find that those black spots seemed to have life suddenly, and they desperately drilled out in the direction where the blue silk thread hadn't closed, even if they lost most of their bodies because of it. The escaped black spots were wandering in the soul, and they didn't know how they were connected to each other. They suddenly gathered in the middle, and the remaining black spots merged together one by one, forming a bigger than before. The black spots, and the ones that expanded and retracted began to move regularly, as if a heart was beating. At the same time, Alexei on the test bench also began to respond. Roar, roar. Alexei, who was lying on the test bench, let out a low growl, and his muscles began to tense. If Stark hadn't used the same material as his steel suit on this test bench, he might have broken free up. His heartbeat is constantly increasing, his blood pressure is also increasing, and various indicators are beginning to rise rapidly. Dr. Connors said anxiously, looking at the readings of the instrument. Something went wrong again. Mobius looked depressed. Since his last experimental accident, he returned to the laboratory for the first time. Unexpectedly, something went wrong again. But fortunately, after becoming a vampire, Mobius acted a lot more ruthlessly. Seeing that the situation was showing signs of getting out of control, he hastily activated the emergency plan. Change the tube of Kareen. Mobius yelled at Peter, and personally changed the drug on one infusion tube to another. But you are not of the drug grade. Peter hesitated. The tubocurarine used by Mobius is not a clinically used anesthetic, but a poison grade that can kill people. Although the rhinoceros is physically strong and had been corrupted, but a few drops of poison that could kill a bull were injected so much at once, he was a little worried for Alexei's life. The poison is effective now, and it may not be useful when he turns into a demon in a while. Mobius doesn't care about the life and death of the rhinoceros. If he turns into a demon in broad daylight and something happens, he will really afraid of what Kane would do to him. Don't panic. Is there anything abnormal about the demonic blood in his body? I saw a strange beating heart from his soul. Kane asked. He probably knew Mobius' concerns, but with so many bone dragons around, even if the rhinoceros becomes corrupted and mutated again, he has the confidence to take him down. All the devil's blood hidden in his blood flowed into his heart. What's going on? Dr. Connors, who was reminded by Kane, quickly looked at another screen. In the blood hologram, it can be seen that some unknown substances flowed backward into his heart. Devil's egg, you'd better get rid of him now, or you will face a real demon soon. A joking voice sounded from behind Kane. Hugh came into his hands. What happened to the devil's egg? Oh, respected master, it is like this: when a demon corrupts another creature through blood, and his body dies, the soul may enter the body of the corrupted creature, resurrect and occupy the body, and the process of occupation is that the soul generates a heart-like devil's egg on the soul of the occupied person, and when the devil's egg hatches successfully, the body will completely become the body of the devil himself. Lakanishu, he claimed all the information he knew. Although his soul became the spirit of the crystal skull, after his secret confirmation, he found that he still couldn't resist the control of Rothma's skeleton suit, that is, said that his life and death are under Kane's control, so he acts like a loyal servant. Is there any way to crack it? Kane glanced at Peter, feeling extremely depressed. This is too coincidental. Seeing that the blood of the demon that corrupted Alexei was about to be purified, its demon itself died so coincidentally, is it really the laboratory curse that this guy is carrying? Just kill him. He's just a mortal before the devil's egg hatches, so he can die easily. Is there no other way? I've only heard that Rothma has saved people from the devil's eggs, but apparently time is running out. How long does it take for a devil's egg to hatch? About 10 minutes. Running out of time, Kane decided to give it a try as he saw Alexei moving more and more violently on the test bench. After all, he had a Rasma bone dagger in his hand, and Rhino was slightly weaker than Hulk in terms of strength. And with a simple mind, he would be a good follower if he was rescued. Help me hold him. After reminding everyone, Kane pulled out the bone dagger. This time he didn't directly insert the bone dagger into Alexei's body. He had just experienced the power of the bone dagger. Who knew if he would kill Alexei and the devil's egg with one blow? As the Craven brothers and Peter firmly held down Alexei, Cain slowly stabbed the bone dagger towards him. Cain, who had always opened the eye of the spirit, stared at the demonic eye on the soul. Egg, stretched out the bone dagger. The snow-white bone dagger penetrated into the beating devil's egg, and a howling sound came from it. Fearing that something unexpected would happen, Cain immediately wrapped the egg with the power of the spirit. His move was too timely. As soon as the power of the spirit was wrapped, a shock wave from the soul burst out from the devil's egg, and the shock wave that had been severely weakened by the power of the spirit still made Alexei utter a painful cry. It is conceivable that without Cain's hand, the rhinoceros would have become history. That soul impact seems to be the last resort of the devil's egg. After it was released, it was absorbed by the bone dagger without resistance, leaving only some remaining soul fragments that were integrated into Alexei's soul. In the middle, his body no longer struggled, and fell into a deep sleep. "Is it all right?" Peter tentatively asked. They heard what Lakanishu said just now, but Cain seemed to have just stabbed Alexei with his elusive dagger and he was quiet. When he got down, the sound of heavy breathing showed that he was still alive, and it was probably Cain's method that worked. It should be. Cain wiped his sweat. Only he knew how dangerous it was just now, but there are more important things to do now. Come on, while I'm still here, hurry up and get on the test bed one by one to inject the serum. If there is any accident, I will take care of it together. Cain hurriedly greeted the other people, and Peter was there. He always felt uneasy. Of course, the group of 6 is not at ease now. Looking at Cain's posture, he always looks like a small vendor selling contraband on the street. That posture seems to say, come, I still have some marijuana here. It's not here yet, I'll sell it to you at a low price, hurry up, there aren't many left, first come first served. What's even more exaggerated is that Lakanishu was still adding fuel and vinegar to the side. Hurry up, line up, it is a great honor for my master to condescend to exorcise you. His old man is a direct disciple of the ancestor Rothma. This is a blessing that has been cultivated for several lifetimes. Well, the group of 6 thinks that they have joined some illegal organization, the kind that harvests human organs. When Tony finished the press conference and returned to the laboratory, what he saw was a misleading scene. The sinister 6 were fixed on the test bench, looking at the needles being pierced into their bodies with trepidation. While Peter was looking at Mobius with a gentle face, he said, "Don't be afraid, it will be fine in one go, it won't hurt." What's going on? Tony was stunned for a moment, then walked up to Cain with a cup of dark green drink and asked. In order to ensure that the devil's blood on them won't cause any more trouble. Cain still stared at the group of 6 with blank eyes. After all, this involved their lives. Magic can also cure diseases. It seems that you are similar to the exorcist priest in the church. It depends on what disease you have. It might be better if you are corrupted by the devil and come to me. What about getting shrapnel? Cain was taken aback, and looked back at Tony. His special colored drink reminded Cain that Tony is now in a state of palladium poisoning. Although it is only in the early stage, it still affects Tony. Bang bang, Tony tapped the arc reactor on his chest, and said with a free and easy look, although this thing made me survive and become Iron Man, but the palladium element in it poisoned me, this kind of watching myself slow the feeling of going to death is not very good, so I want to ask you if there is any good way. Cain nodded. After I finish treating them, I don't think your troubles should be a big problem. Tony nodded and didn't say anything else, but walked upstairs while drinking the hard-to-swallow detox drink. He was still modifying his armor to deal with more complicated situations and enemies. Glancing at Tony's back, Cain felt a little complicated. After a period of contact, his perception of Tony was greatly reversed. Tony is indeed a rich playboy, there is no doubt about it, but this is his living habits, there is nothing to criticize. On the contrary, when he really realized how bloody and cruel this world is, countless ordinary people when he was in dire straits, he gave up the military industry that could bring a lot of wealth, and turned to the energy market that is more helpful to mankind. In the process, he constantly researches and upgrades his steel suit to fight against evil. Moreover, when he was being chronically poisoned, he did not hesitate to contribute his strength to the citizens of New York. From these things, Cain has recognized Tony. This is a person full of justice in his heart. But it's all hidden under his cynical exterior. However, how to treat Tony also made Kane a little worried. The easiest way, of course, is to let Tony discover the new alternative elements left to him by his father as in the movie, so as to solve his palladium poisoning problem, but the difficulty of this solution is, how to tell Tony, or tell him from his father's spirit, that Tony's follow-up reaction is completely unpredictable, and with his ingenuity, the chance of finding out that this is a lie is not low. If he really treats him as a friend, he can't deceive him with lies. Kane, who was thinking hard, glanced at Dr. Otto's mechanical arm from the corner of his eye, and suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Yes, the root cause is not as good as a temporary solution. The reason for Tony's palladium poisoning is the arc reactor placed on his chest to prevent shrapnel from entering the heart. As long as the shrapnel is removed, that's what he did in Iron Man 3. Why did he have to follow the plot? As for the danger, it's not a problem. Dr. Otto is there in surgery. The mechanical arm is much more precise and stable than the human hand. As for the life support system when picking up the shrapnel, Mobius and Dr. Connors are also experts. It is so easy to die. Kane, who had untied his knot, turned his attention back to the group of 6. The first task now is to get them out of the way. If someone suddenly goes wrong during Tony's treatment, the consequences. Probably he will be killed by God immediately. Wanted by the Shield. At the same time, in the CEO's office on the top floor of a skyscraper in Manhattan, a tall bald man is looking out of the window with his hands behind his back. A thick and long metal cane is placed on his boss's desk. On the round armrest of the cane covered with viscous red and white liquid, a dead body with a burst skull was lying on the table, wearing a captain's suit. "Who are you?" A loud sound came from outside the door, and the bald man frowned and turned his head. It was Jin Bin, who had escaped from the pier before. Unknowingly, the metal walking stick had come into his hand. Boom! The gate was knocked open, and Jin Bin, who was guarding outside the gate, was put on his neck with samurai swords. Among the group of sullen oriental faces, a little boy walked in with a smile. "You are indeed one of the top underworld bosses in the United States. It's really not easy to see you, Mr. Jin Bin. The Hand, why do you rats who are wanted by S.H.I.E.L.D. come here?" Although he didn't know who the little boy was, but seeing the faces and weapons of these people, Jin Bin immediately guessed the identity of. "Hee, why can't I come? Could it be that Boss Jin Bin will report me to S.H.I.E.L.D.? It seems that you have also been on their blacklist recently, am I right?" The little boy walked away with a smile. He came in and sat on the sofa in the hall by himself. Wow, a large group of gangsters surrounded those hand ninjas with automatic weapons, and they would turn them into a hornet's nest just waiting for Jinpin's order. This efficiency made He Kong secretly surprised. It can be said that in this gangster in terms of levels, Jin Bin has reached the peak, and no gang can pose a threat to him, except for those superheroes. "Tell me why you came here." Jin Bin looked at He Kong and said, although he is just an ordinary human being, and this little boy is not an ordinary person at first glance, but he is not without strength to fight back. His cane is for dealing with aliens. It is specially customized by capable people, and there are many deadly organs in it. Okay, He Kong is no longer a joke. The two of them have shown their strength. It's time to talk about business. I heard what happened at the dock recently. Boss Jin Bing suffered an indiscriminate disaster. As far as I know, the ones who did it were Death Rattler, Spider-Man and Iron Man, and S.H.I.E.L.D. provided them with information. As a dark force, we have always tried our best to avoid confrontation with S.H.I.E.L.D. However, judging from what is happening now, look, are we fueling their arrogance by doing this? S.H.I.E.L.D. is just an organization responsible for some super criminals and items, and now it has reached out to the underground world. If we can't fight back, I'm afraid there will be no room for us to survive in the future. Gone. Jin Bing looked at He Kong, sat back behind the boss's desk, and ordered to the men at the door, "Take the corpse out and close the door." Hearing Jin Bin's words, He Kong smiled and nodded at the men at the door. Those ninjas immediately withdrew their sharp blades, bowed and left the room. All the shrapnel from Tony's body were taken out. As Kane expected, with Dr. Otto and the others around, this injury was not a big deal. Although they were not professional doctors, they accurately removed the metal shrapnel and protected Tony during the operation. In terms of the stability of the life forms in the world, I am afraid that few people in the world can surpass them. In return, when Kane returned to the bar, he found that Tony had sent him the deed of the entire apartment where the bar was located by Topep. No matter how many households there are, the Sinister Six also needs a residence. Living here is also convenient for him to monitor nearby. In addition, there are more and more things he needs to hide now, so it is better to be a little far away from ordinary people. After being jointly purified by Cain and the others, the group of 6 has completely got rid of the control of the blood of the devil. However, the genetic enhancement brought to them by the blood of the devil still remains, and it is still controllable. Of course, as penniless poor tenants, the group of 6 also needs to help with work in lieu of rent, such as Chameleon, who has become a handsome middle-aged man to take over Peter's job. As for Peter, Cain thinks his ingenuity is still to harm. Oh no, it is better to help Dr. Otto and others. I believe that there are 3 doctors, and Peter should not be too powerful. The new bartender and the regular customers of the bar are very satisfied, for example, Mr. Stanley, who has been here since the early morning. Well, the young man is not bad. He is very diligent. He is much better than that Peter. Cain is the same. Why did he recruit a young man? Back in our day, we had already been dragged out to enforce the military law. Oh, the old man was a soldier back then. Cain responded with a smile while wiping his wine glass. These old residents nearby took good care of his business, and he didn't mind chatting with these old people and bragging. Of course, don't look at me as thin and small now. I have experienced the baptism of World War II, and do you know that I fought side by side with Captain America back then? Wow, really, that was a legendary experience, tell us about it. Cain pretended to be surprised, which greatly satisfied Mr. Lee's self-esteem. HMPH, what a shitty Captain America, it's just publicity. I can guarantee that he won't last 10 seconds in my hands. Craven, who was standing next to Cain and cleaning a glass, expressed disdain. He in Russia has no admiration for Captain America. Hey, boy, what are you talking about? Come here, do you want to hear the real battle of Captain America? Come here and let me tell you. Mr. Lee was a little deaf, and he greeted Craven loudly. The unlucky Craven under Cain's signal, he could only walk over with a depressed face. At this moment, the door of the bar was pushed open, and Tony walked in energetically. Hey, Tony, you're recovering well. What's the matter? What do you want me to do? Cain asked. Of course, Dr. Connor's muscle repair technology is great, and I have already applied for a patent for him. Tony took off his sunglasses and said with a smile, I really have something to ask you, remember Wade? Wade Wilson, Deadpool. Cain paused, not to mention, there have been too many things in the recent period, and he really forgot about him. Yes, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not find any trace of Osborn when they cleared Osborn's underground base, and did not find his name after searching the recruiting records. Then where did he go? Cain frowned. Wade possessed supernatural powers, so how could he disappear without a sound? I'm afraid it's not ordinary people who can do this. I asked Jarvis to search the surveillance in New York during this period. The last place he appeared was a recruitment office called AIM, and he disappeared after that. I suspect that there is something wrong with this company. Tony said, Wade, he is working for us anyway, I think it is necessary to find him out. What does this AIM company do? Cain asked. AIM company is completely 2 companies in Marvel movies and comics. He needs to know which one is the opponent. If Wade falls into the toilet of Mordoke in the hands of others, I am afraid they will be in big trouble. Pioneer Technology Company is dedicated to biotechnology. I heard that it has a military background. The CEO is a scientist named Aldridge Killian. He used to recruit physically disabled veterans from all over the United States to participate in an experiment, but the specifics of the experiment, the content is not clear. Tony took out all the collected information. Looking at the handsome-looking man on the information, Cain knew that the AIM company here is the company in Iron Man 3, and Extremis Virus is their masterpiece, but he still has a worry in his heart, that is, Tony and Frank are in Afghanistan. The zombies that were suspected of being modified by the Extremis virus, whether there is any connection between the 10 Rings gang and AIM, and what kind of character the Mandarin is in it, are still unknown. Don't you still have friends in the military? Can you learn more about this company from them? I'm also looking for clues from the underground world. At least I need to find out whether Wade is there. If I illegally invade a serious company, even it's impossible for you not to take any responsibility. Now that Killian hasn't kidnapped Pep, and even the bomber hasn't appeared. If they can't find any criminal evidence in AIM, the military won't take it lightly. Forgive them, Kane didn't make a good impression on them when he hated that thing last time. Okay, let's investigate separately. If there is any news, call. Tony packed up the information, put on sunglasses and walked out of the bar, and Kane called the chameleon over. At this moment, Wade, whom Tony and the others were planning to rescue, was locked in an iron cage, showing his eloquence to two big men with expressionless faces. Hey, you can't do this, I just teased that fat woman, why did I have to be locked up, and I have to draw so much blood every day? Go and tell your boss that every drop of my blood is my private property and must be exchanged for the same weight of gold. I will account for every drop of my blood. If he dares not to pay, then I will go out. In the future, I will let him know my Deadpool reputation in the industry. Why are you laughing? Yes, it's you, the one on the left. Don't think I didn't see it. Do you think I can't get out again? Haha, let me tell you, I am a member of the SHIELD Special Operations Team. Now they probably have already set up a net and are waiting outside to rush in. Come on, let me out. I will consider saving your life in front of them. How about it? Think about it. The big man, who was annoyed enough by him, shook his head, turned around and pressed a button. A soundproof glass wall fell down, and they could no longer hear Wade's chattering voice. Yes, the background of AIM. Oh, it's nothing. I just want to know the strength of my competitors. I won't touch the military industry again, but those guys still want to attack me from the energy field. Biological power generation. Are they planning to light up the whole city with fireflies? Well, thank you, James. Let me know as soon as you have any news. Tony hung up the phone of his friend James Roddy in the military, and dialed again Pep's phone call. Honey, it's me. Can you get me the financial statements of AIM for the last few years? Before Tony could finish speaking, Pepper's angry roar came from the receiver. Tony, you fool, I'm just an assistant and not your slave. Now all the company's affairs are pushed to me, and you still let me running around for you. Tony hurriedly begged for mercy. Hey, baby, don't be like this. You also know that I am really busy here, and I have to donate to the Museum of Natural History, and I want to improve the steel suit, and I just underwent an operation. Very important. I suspect that this company is related to the previous Devil's Night incident, and now the military is also cooperating with them. If they have any conspiracy, the consequences will not be much better than that night. Thinking of the shrapnel that was taken out of Tony that day, Pep also calmed down. Now Tony is doing the right thing after all, which is better than his extravagant drinking. You send it over. Not long after, there was a knock on the door of Tony's office. He looked at the monitor and saw a red-haired beauty standing at the door of the office. Which one? Tony asked, while reaching under the table. A pair of steel suit gauntlets immediately attached to his hands. After a series of incidents, his vigilance was much higher. I'm Natasha, Miss Potts' assistant. She asked me to send you a document. Tony entered her name into the computer, and the profile picture of this beautiful woman appeared on it immediately. Seeing that she was indeed the assistant Pep had just recruited, Tony pressed the switch to open the door. Of course, the gauntlet was still not retracted. The door opened, and a beautiful woman with a voluptuous figure walked in. This angle was much stronger than that of the surveillance camera. Even if the woman who came in was seen by Tony's eyes, she was enough to be called a stunner. She had red hair. The curly hair is tied behind the head. The towering chest Tony thinks is at least 63 cm. The slender legs, a well-wrapped professional attire, and the unsmiling and beautiful face, all aroused Tony's great interest. Hello, Mr. Stark, this is the document that Miss Pep asked me to give you. A document was placed on the table. Okay, thanks, just put it there. Are you new here? Yes, Mr. Stark, I just officially took office today, and I have been working in the company's legal department before. Very good, you are very smart. Proficient in French, Italian and Latin. Do you want to be my assistant? I just need a competent assistant like you. Sorry, Mr. Stark, you have to ask Miss Pep about this. She is my boss now. If there is nothing else, I will leave first. After finishing speaking, the woman turned and left Tony's office, and his eyes never left her back. I must get her, today. Oh no, forget it, another day. Today Pep will probably beat me to death. Tony remembered Pep's roar before, couldn't help but shivered and opened the front door. Folder. In the Hellfire Club, a man with a hat bowed his head and walked in, came to the bar and sat down, knocked on the table. "Hey, mole, give me a blowjob." Wade. The male mole turned around in surprise, and it was Wade's face full of scars that caught his eyes. "I haven't seen you for a long time. I thought you died in Ames laboratory. Why did you come out again? It seems that they still haven't cured your face," Mole said while mixing the wine. "Don't mention it. I passed all the tests, but on the way they said I was unqualified and kicked me out of the car. By the way, do you still have their contact information?" "No, I just returned that one to you, and I heard that they closed the registration office for disabled soldiers in New York, probably because of the demon night before, and it is said that all the demons were veterans who were conscripted into Osborne's soldier. This is quite a big mess," Mole replied while handing the tuned flute to Wade. "You're not Wade." Mole watched the person in front of him drink down the glass of flute, and immediately took out a pistol from under the counter and put it on his head. "Wow, the vigilance is really high. How did you see it?" Wade raised his hands and smiled. "I've never seen Wade drink a flute." Mole's eyes reflected a cold light, and the surrounding mercenaries also gathered together. "Tell me, who are you?" Wade stood up and took 2 steps back. Right in front of everyone, his face suddenly distorted. Everyone took a step back in shock. In the blink of an eye, a man wearing a target mask appeared in front of him, in front of them. "Bullseye, aren't you dead?" The mole was well informed and recognized the man at a glance. "HMPH, did you see it with your own eyes?" Bullseye looked around, and the mercenaries couldn't help taking another step back, and put down the guns in their hands. They all knew that Bullseye was the #1 killer under Boss Jinbing, even though it's been a long time since I heard from him, but the shadow of the famous tree, his name was stained red by the blood of the victim, not to mention, even if he can be killed, the big boss Jinbing is still an existence they can't afford. The mole also put down his weapon. "Is it Jinbing who wants to find Wade?" "Yes, that guy took a lot of money from the big boss but failed to do what he should do. Now the big boss ordered me to take him back. Does anyone know where he is? The big boss has a reward." The mercenaries looked at each other, but no one stood up. Boss Jinbing obeyed his words, saying that if there is a reward, there must be one, but he didn't rub the sand in his eyes. Whoever dares to cheat his money will die. That's the only result, so it seems that these people really don't know where Wade is going. Wade appeared here for the last time. He took away my only AIM recruitment card and never appeared again. Mole said honestly, "This is not a betrayal. The missing Wade may not be better than falling into Jinbin's hands, because the mole vaguely feels that Wade does not seem to be afraid of death, and being found by Jinbin may save his life." "Okay, I see." Bullseye nodded, turned and walked out of the club, and when he walked through a shadow without lights, he turned from head to toe into a black man with headphones and disappeared around the corner. A large cargo plane was parked in the special warehouse of the Stark Group at Miami Airport, and the workers waiting here drove the forklifts to transport the large containers down one by one. "Do you have to take those skeletons with you?" "We have to take a cargo plane." A group of people walked down from the front cabin, and Tony kept complaining to Kane. "Don't even think about it. Why did a company engaged in biomedicine quickly replace you and become the largest cooperative enterprise of the military? This is something that Hammer Industries has not done for decades." Kane looking at the lineup behind them: Morena, Kulik, Alexei, the Craven brothers, Mobiak, plus Tony and him. "This lineup looks much more secure." After the 2 doctors were purified, their combat ability dropped significantly. Although they can still be demonized, Kane does not intend to bring them along. He would not do such things as putting technical talents on the battlefield. Now Dr. Connors, the trauma repair fluid researched with blood, is undergoing mass production research, which is a major event that can benefit all mankind. The same is true for Dr. Otto. Although the new energy he researches is extremely unstable, he still has talent in energy. Therefore, he is now in charge of the improvement and optimization of the arc reactor. After being purified, Dr. Otto recalled, "I remembered some bits and pieces of memory when I was demonized, and I have a certain understanding of my paranoia. Now I am doing very well in Tony's company, and I hope to become the chief engineer in a short time." In addition, the person who did not come in their team was Peter. This time, Kane did not hide it from him, and clearly told him that the operation this time may bleed, and the number may be quite a lot. Persuaded, He has been with Kane for a long time, and he also knows that some of his thoughts are too naive, but as a kind-hearted person, he still can't attack a living person, but he has not made any further moves against Kane's behavior, evaluation, but took the initiative to take over the work of the bar. Of course, there was another guy who volunteered to come, the vampire Morbius. When he heard Kane say that there would be a lot of bloodshed in this operation, his eyes lit up, and he opened the bat. Ye came to his side, begging to bring him with him. This bloodthirsty posture caused Kane to open the eyes of the spirit and look at him carefully. He was afraid that his purification was not thorough enough. However, he did not see it in the end. He has any signs of being corrupted, and Kane can only attribute his behavior to the fact that his bloodthirsty nature was completely stimulated after the transformation. What you said makes sense. Although that guy Hammer has no brains, he still has a good relationship with the military. AIM Company can surpass him. There must be something special about him. Kane confirmed the team when he was a member. Tony also figured it out. The only thing that can impress the military is technology that others don't have. However, unique technology is not a Chinese cabbage on the roadside. It can be taken out casually. It requires a lot of experiments to ensure its feasibility, and this requires a lot of financial support. He has checked the accounts of AIM. Before cooperating with the military, their company did not have any products to sell, but the funds on the accounts have never been lacking, and the source of those funds is the inheritance of their CEO Aldrich Killian. Well, only the group of brainless guys in the military would believe that this Killian would die a rich relative every once in a while, but Tony didn't believe it at all, so there must be something wrong with this AIM company. Then, the next step is to confirm Wade's location first. Tony led everyone to the temporary command center in the corner of the warehouse. Although it was a bit crude, there were a lot of high-tech devices in it. Jarvis, help me find out where the disabled soldiers recruited by AIM are shipped. Yes, Mr. Stark. Countless images flashed across the computer screen, and not long after, an old villa by the sea appeared on the screen. It has been confirmed that the disabled soldiers have been transported here, and the registration information is AIM's Seaside Recuperation Villa. Sanatorium Villa. Which company's sanatorium villa needs so many guards with guns? Tony looked at the countless guards with automatic rifles on the screen and sneered. Dimitri, it's up to you. Kane glanced back at a black man wearing earphones, and he smiled with his mouth open. No problem, this is my old profession. The sun was scorching, and a truck drove far from the coastline of Miami. The painted logo on the body showed that the truck belonged to AIM. The truck stopped in front of a villa, and two big men with automatic rifles reached out to stop the car. One of the big men looked at the cab vigilantly and asked the driver, Jack, why are you a little late today? Hey, don't mention it, it's not the unlucky weather. A tire blew up, and it took me a long time to replace it. A boy with South American descent stuck his head out of the car window and pointed to the back. The big man looked at the broken tire that had been replaced at the bottom of the car, and nodded to the other big man. However, the door was still not opened. The other big man pressed a button next to the door, and a green light scanned the entire car, only to find that Jack after a heat source the door was opened. The truck drove in through the gate and drove straight to the kitchen behind the villa. Seeing that there was nothing unusual, the two big men at the gate turned their eyes elsewhere again. Jack parked the truck in front of the kitchen door, and a few chefs came out immediately and opened the back door to unload the ingredients. Jack found the leader of the kitchen, stretched his waist and said to him, Hey boss, it's a hot day. I'm dizzy, I'm going to sleep for a while. Go away, brat. Jack smiled and turned around and walked into the house, but he didn't enter the chef's lounge, but turned and walked into the depths of the villa. Soon, he found his target. A guard walked towards the toilet, and he followed with a slight smile. After a muffled sound, the guard straightened his clothes and came out again. He is the chameleon Dimitri, the younger brother of the hunter Craven, who was once a Russian spy, proficient in disguise, and it is said that his true face has never appeared. After experiencing the demonic corruption, his ability is even more terrifying. He can change into anyone's appearance and voice at will without using any props. He can even simulate the environment and achieve the effect of invisibility. He is a natural intruder. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.